681. The Aftermath, the Top 10 in the Immortal Way. 7,000 years, mysterious action. Good, 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 so this is how you want to play. Do you think becoming the third prince's concubine will allow you to escape this calamity? Your smile is somewhat cold. At night, the heavily intoxicated King Ning, upon lifting the red veil, was instantly shocked awake. Because beneath the veil was an old man. This old man was his advisor, possessing a cultivation of over 1,000 epochs. He was the expert King Ning had sent to secretly protect the bride. Unexpectedly, the old man was sitting on the wedding bed. Where was his bride? The old man was unable to move, and King Ning exerted great effort to break the seal on his body. The first thing the old man said was that his bride had been snatched away by a mysterious person. King Ning was furious. How dare someone act within his territory? However, no matter how he investigated, he could not find any trace of that mysterious expert. If he were to take this matter to his imperial father, he would probably be reprimanded instead. So, King Ning found another fake bride. Not long after, he arranged for her to die suddenly. This matter was thus left unsettled. After you captured Hongfen Niangyang, you began to perform soul-searching on her. All information related to you matched what the diviner had said. As for why she wanted to be King Ning's concubine, it was due to her innate sense of danger. When Tianji old ancestor made his move, she sensed the danger. However, with such an absolute disparity in strength, even if she sensed it, she would still be hard-pressed to escape death. Subsequently, after killing Hongfen Niangyang, you began to examine her assets. Although Hongfen Niangyang only had a cultivation of 600 epochs, she was excellent at accumulating wealth. The resources on her amounted to over 10 billion Dao crystals. In addition, she possessed two top-tier Chaos Supreme treasures, the Yinyuan tree and the Shaanxi rope. You did not plan to keep these two items. You would simply devour them directly. Afterward, your Dao body went into seclusion. Because at this time, the deaths of the diviner and 100 monstrosities demon god began to ferment. Both sects were searching for the killer. Finally, Tianji old ancestor, through Hongfen Niangyang's death, pinpointed you as the target. Because all three who died were connected to you. You could not escape suspicion no matter what. You also did not intend to deliberately hide. You were merely retaliating reasonably. If he had the ability, he could come to heaven-severing sword sect to find you. 2.5 years later, your Immortal Dao Principles ranking on the 10,000 Dao ranking reached 17th place. At the same time, your sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Dao finally achieved minor achievement. When you swung your sword, various Dao principles would be annihilated, which was incredibly astonishing. With such a sword art, unless someone could overpower you in terms of strength, it would be very difficult to defeat you with just the power of Dao principles. At this time, there were still 36 years until the 100 Realms Prodigy Assembly. You decided to raise your Immortal Dao Principles to around 10th place, and then begin to fully focus on improving your cultivation. 9 years later, your Immortal Dao Principles finally entered the top 10 on the 10,000 Dao ranking. An anomaly appeared in the Taichu realm, shaking the heroes of the 5 realms. Among the top 10 Dao Principles in the Taichu realm, 7 were innate Dao Principles. The other 3 were created by sacrificed Dao realm old ancestors. It was unexpected that you, a great Dao realm expert, could also create a top 10 Dao principle. This was an unprecedented event. Many speculated whether this meant that even without the Taichu Divine Stone, you still had full hope of becoming a sacrificed Dao realm expert. Zantian Laozu was also very happy and specially prepared a few more dishes for you. You naturally ate them all without ceremony, and your comprehension ability increased significantly. After your Immortal Dao Principles advanced to the top 10, you would fully focus on improving your cultivation. You spent 1 month devouring the Yinyuan tree, a top-tier Chaos Supreme treasure, and your cultivation surged by 200 epochs. Afterward, you spent another month devouring the Shaanxi rope, and your cultivation increased by another 200 epochs. In just 2 months, you gained 400 epochs of cultivation. It was truly terrifying, and this was only the beginning. You still had resources worth 30 billion Dao crystals in your hand. If you devoured all of them, your cultivation would definitely surpass Blood Wushang. At that time, unless a sacrificed Dao realm expert used sacrificial Dao power or ganged up on you, they could only stare helplessly at you. 3 more months passed, and your cultivation successfully increased by 600 epochs, reaching a terrifying 7,000 epochs. Even without using the Taichu Divine Stone, you had a 70% chance of achieving a breakthrough to the sacrificed Dao realm. Of course, this probability was still too low for you. It would be best to achieve a breakthrough to the 10,000 Dao realm, which would give you a 100% chance. As for the Taichu Divine Stone, it was merely an additional layer of insurance. You would not place all your hopes on it. One must be strong oneself. Who knew if using the Taichu Divine Stone would have any negative effects? Therefore, achieving a breakthrough to the 10,000 Dao realm yourself was the most reliable option. Not long after you emerged from seclusion, Zantian Laozu, for the first time ever, actively sought you out. He told you he would be away for a few months, and that you needed to look after his vegetable garden during these days. He knew that with your strength, you were already second only to him within the heaven-severing sword sect. That was why he said this. However, he also warned you not to secretly eat them, or he would not let you off lightly. You were a bit displeased, saying that you were upright and never did such things. However, you were somewhat worried. Zantian Laozu would be gone for several months. What if Tianji Old Ancestor or 9 Nether Demon God came to attack? Zantian Laozu told you not to worry, as the other sacrifice Dao realm experts in the Taichu realm would also disappear during these months. You were greatly surprised. What kind of matter was worth so many sacrifice Dao realm experts going together? Zantian Laozu, however, did not tell you the reason, but instead admonished you not to cause trouble while the sacrifice Dao realm experts were away. Otherwise, if you were held accountable, he would not be able to help you. You asked how could that be? You would stay in the sect during this time. Zantian Laozu rolled his eyes at you, saying not to think that he did not know about the Shadowless Hall incident. Many traces were covered up by him for you. You had originally thought you had done it perfectly, but you never expected that you still couldn't escape Zantian Laozu's Dharma eye. You guaranteed him that you would not cause trouble during this period. Just like that, a few days later, Zantian Laozu left. You found out that at the same time, there were rumors of sacrifice Dao realm experts from other top forces also leaving. For so many sacrifice Dao realm experts to mobilize together, it must be something extraordinary. However, according to the sect's ancient texts, the Taichu realm was already the strongest known realm. What else could be worth so many sacrifice Dao realm experts making a move? 682. The leader takes the blame, his comprehension increases dramatically. The newcomer is better than the old one, a strange forbidden place. You thought of Taichu Taoist. He created the Taichu realm. His strength far exceeded that of ordinary sacrifice Dao realm cultivators. For some unknown reason, he suddenly disappeared later, leaving behind only 3 Taichu divine stones. It is unknown whether the actions of these sacrifice Dao realm powerhouses are related to Taichu Taoist. In the first month after Sword Ancestor Zantian left, you honestly stayed in the sect Forbidden Land to cultivate, not even touching a single leaf in the vegetable garden. In the second month after Sword Ancestor Zantian left, you used the Eye of Illusory Breaking to see through the camouflage of the vegetable garden. Inside were all rare treasures permeated with the Qi of the Great Tao, each one incredibly rare. You couldn't resist and secretly ate a few plants. Cough cough, it wasn't secretly eating. This was just your hard-earned fee for guarding the vegetable garden. At the same time, the Shadowless Hall was causing trouble. They were not harming the top-tier forces, but rather the second and third-tier forces. They were originally affiliated forces of the top-tier forces. Now that they had no backing, weren't they at your mercy? And you felt that as long as you didn't attack the sects of those top-tier forces, those sacrificed Dao realm old ancestors shouldn't be so petty as to retaliate against you, right? In the third month after Sword Ancestor Zantian left, sect leader Wang Tong came to the sect Forbidden Land. He was worried about you, so he checked the situation in the vegetable garden. However, he naturally couldn't see anything unusual. But you had a flash of inspiration. You asked him if he wanted some vegetables to take back and nourish himself. The vegetables in Sword Ancestor Zantian's garden were all extremely precious good things. Wang Tong hesitated, saying, "Isn't this not good?" You smiled and said, "Why be polite? If anything happens, I'll take the blame." After speaking, you took several large bamboo baskets and packed half of the vegetables for Wang Tong. Wang Tong took them back nervously, and upon eating them, he discovered that they were just ordinary vegetables. How were they precious? Of course, they were ordinary vegetables, because the real vegetables had already entered your pockets. Anyway, with the temporal images as proof, all these vegetables were taken by Wang Tong, and they had nothing to do with you. In the 4th month after Sword Ancestor Zantian left, you refined all of the half of the rare treasures you had harvested. Your basic comprehension ability increased by more than 20 times, which was quite astonishing. If you ate all the rest, you licked your lips. However, you were a person with a conscience. Zantian Laozu had worked hard to grow vegetables for so many years, it wasn't easy, so you would leave him half. You weren't afraid of him going berserk. This was concern for the elderly. At this time, your cultivation also increased by 500 epochs, reaching 7,500 epochs. You were only a few hundred epochs of cultivation away from blood wushang. In the 5th month, Zantian Laozu finally returned. You saw that the cloth clothes on him were damaged in many places, as if he had just experienced a great battle. When Zantian Laozu returned and saw that only half of the vegetables were left in the garden, he was so angry that his 3 corpses jumped. You quickly said that you hadn't secretly eaten them, and that they were all taken by sect leader Wang Tong. He was the sect leader. If he wanted to eat vegetables, you couldn't stop him. If he didn't believe you, old ancestor could check the historical images himself. Zantian Laozu looked, and indeed it was so. He immediately called sect leader Wang Tong over and scolded him severely. Wang Tong said that those vegetables were given to him by you, and they were just ordinary vegetables. You said he was quibbling, that he clearly wanted to eat them himself. The two of you then accused each other in front of the old ancestor. 683. Weird face. Sacrifice, the other side, transcendence. 8,000 years, tip off. After half an hour of confrontation, the knocking sound finally dissipated. Early on the 7th day, you opened the door and found many footprints outside. Is this truly an encounter with evil spirits? However, since the 7-day period was not yet up, you couldn't leave the wooden house to inquire with Zantian Laozu. Tonight is the last night. You were determined to see what was outside the wooden house. So, after nightfall, you left 2 Dao bodies to guard outside the door. Dao body, you dog. Let your brave and fearless Dao body witness the true face of the knocking entity. Perhaps it was afraid of your Dao body. That eerie entity did not arrive in the middle of the night. However, as dawn approached, a line of footprints walked towards the wooden house. Your 2 Dao bodies immediately became alert and attacked the location of the footprints. However, that spot seemed to be empty, and they didn't hit any physical entity. The footprints went straight to one of your Dao bodies. Your Dao body, in a trance, saw a hazy shadow pounce on it. Subsequently, in just a few breaths, it turned into a dried corpse and died on the spot. Your other Dao body's scalp tingled with fear, and it quickly knocked on the door, shouting, "Open the door quickly." Your main body blocked the door, telling the Dao body to hold on a little longer. A moment later, another scream was heard. Your other Dao body also turned into a dried corpse. Afterward, that mysterious entity seemed satisfied and left, not knocking again. On the morning of the 8th day, you opened the door and saw 2 dried corpses at the entrance, filled with lingering fear. This thing can attack others, but others can't attack it, it's truly perverse. Fortunately, you used a Dao body to test it out. If your main body had opened the door rashly, the consequences would have been unpredictable. At this moment, Zantian Laozu finally appeared. He chuckled and said, "If you dare to steal food again next time, I'll let you face that ghostly thing directly." You asked what that thing was exactly. Zantian Laozu said that it was an yin demon formed from the unscattered obsession of a sacrifice Dao realm expert after their death. Because sacrifice Dao realm experts represent a new level. Therefore, the yin demon formed from their obsession is also very difficult for those below sacrifice Dao to attack. He said, "Do you think this place is called a forbidden land just because I live here?" He also said that he was here to suppress these ghostly things. You were somewhat shocked upon hearing this. Weren't sacrifice Dao realm experts said to transcend space and time, immortal and indestructible? Unexpectedly, they can also die. Zantian Laozu said that the conditions for the demise of sacrifice Dao realm experts are indeed harsh, but they are not truly immortal and indestructible. To achieve true immortality and indestructibility, it would probably only be possible for the legendary transcendent realm experts. Mentioning this, you recall the 8 mysterious existences in the mysterious space. Those 8 mysterious existences were all related to the transcendent mark. You asked Zantian Laozu if these 8 people were transcendent. Zantian Laozu said that rumors about them circulated throughout the heavenly realms, but he had never personally seen them, so he couldn't be sure. However, the world-extinguishing dominator and the epic master are undeniably transcendent realm. At this point, you finally understood that those 8 people were indeed transcendent realm. Because they had personally told you that they were existences on the same level as the world-extinguishing dominator and the epic master. They said their realm was above, and then above Immortal Emperor. In other words, it was 2 major realms beyond the Sacrifice Dao realm. You ask Zantian Laozu, what realm is above Sacrifice Dao? Zantian Laozu said, above Sacrifice Dao is the Other Shore realm. Such existences are already difficult to describe with words. You nodded, realizing that above the Other Shore realm, one could achieve transcendence. You currently have 7,500 epochs of cultivation. You are not far from the Sacrifice Dao realm. The Other Shore realm also doesn't seem so distant to you. Afterward, you continued to cultivate in seclusion. 1 year later, your cultivation increased by another 500 epochs. Your cultivation finally reached 8,000 epochs. This was Blood Wushang's former realm. Your strength was already comparable to a Sacrifice Dao realm in its regular state. And at this time, there were still 25 years until the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament. You had every hope of breaking through to the 10,000 Dao realm, that legendary realm, before the Prodigy Tournament arrived. You wondered what those prodigies would think when they saw you then. Just then, the Taichu Divine Emperor of the Central Region suddenly issued a warning to the high-ranking officials of other top forces. He said that Blood Wushang was attempting to break through to the Sacrifice Dao realm in the Purple Demon realm. Blood Wushang's foundation was too profound, with a cultivation of 8,000 epochs, which is rare in ancient and modern times. Once he breaks through, he alone might be able to contend with 2 Sacrifice Dao realm experts. At that time, if he were to join forces with Yin Qianji, the 9 Nether Demon God, and others, it would pose a huge threat to the safety of the Taichu realm. Other Sacrifice Dao realm experts, upon hearing this news, also couldn't sit still and went to the Central Region to discuss countermeasures. Although their subordinate forces were constantly engaged in overt and covert struggles, they still possessed a basic sense of the bigger picture. The Taichu realm was their foundation for survival, and they would never allow it to be threatened by any external forces. As for you, you sent a Dao body from the Shadowless Hall to the Purple Demon realm to tip off Blood Wushang. What you wanted to do was to stir up the situation so that you could profit from it. Only when the Taichu realm faces a huge threat will the pressure on you to break through to the Sacrifice Dao realm in the future be lessened. Otherwise, these Sacrifice Dao realm experts might come to deal with you. Because breaking through to the Sacrifice Dao realm requires sacrificing enough Dao. If you break through with the 10,000 Dao realm, perhaps only the Taichu realm can satisfy that requirement. At that time, the news of your breakthrough certainly wouldn't be hidden from other Sacrifice Dao realm experts. Zantian Laozu alone might find it very difficult to stop the others. Only with greater pressure will other Sacrifice Dao realm experts be happy to see you break through. Just like in the heavenly realms back then. Only when external pressure is greater will other Immortal Emperors hope that you break through as soon as possible and not trip you up during the breakthrough process. Blood Wushang was deeply moved by the intelligence from the Shadowless Hall. He said that after he breaks through, he will definitely continue to protect the Shadowless Hall. Afterward, Blood Wushang disappeared from the Purple Demon realm, his whereabouts unknown. A few days later, the Taichu Divine Emperor, Tianji Old Ancestor, Mystic Ice Taoist, Sword Ancestor Zantian, and Bodhi Zen Master, 5 Sacrifice Dao realm experts, arrived together and completely destroyed the Purple Demon realm. However, the crowd did not find Blood Wushang and Yin Qianji. It was unclear whether the Taichu Divine Emperor's intelligence was inaccurate, or if the two had received the news and escaped in advance. 684. Forced buying and selling, forming a Taoist couple. 3 disasters, 3 calamities, 3 difficulties, calculations from all sides. You, on the other hand, concealed all traces of the Shadowless Hall to prevent anyone from catching wind of it. After all, leaking information like that is a serious offense if it gets out. This matter had not long passed. An unexpected person came to the heaven-severing sword sect to find you. This person was none other than the Ice Soul Holy Maiden. The Ice Soul Holy Maiden confessed her feelings of longing for you, saying she wished to become your Tao companion. You spat out the tea in your mouth and asked her why she suddenly had such a thought. In your heart, you secretly wondered, Haven't I already devoured the Yinyuan tree and Shaanxi rope? Could the Ice Soul Holy Maiden still be affected by them? The Ice Soul Holy Maiden said that Mystic Ice Taoist told her she recently had an inner demon tribulation, and after much thought, she decided it was better to proactively face the tribulation than to avoid it, which is why she spoke so presumptuously. You said you were devoted to the Tao and had no interest in matters of men and women, adding that Zhuang Bufan of the Heaven-Severing Sword sect was quite good, and asked if she'd like you to introduce him. The Ice Soul Holy Maiden firmly refused, saying that although Zhuang Bufan's talent was good, his cultivation was even lower than hers, and she didn't think much of him. Good heavens, she's even picky about who helps her overcome an inner demon tribulation, isn't she? But you didn't want to become her sacrifice. The matter of Ice Soul Palace female disciples overcoming inner demon tribulations has a long history. It is mainly influenced by Mystic Ice Taoist. The people of Ice Soul Palace cultivate the Tao of ruthlessness. But as long as one is human, it's difficult to be completely ruthless. So, Mystic Ice Taoist devised a path of overcoming ruthlessness with emotion. That is, to let female disciples suffer great emotional harm, thereby turning to cultivate ruthlessness. Mystic Ice Taoist relied on this method of sealing the heart and locking love to turn to cultivate the Tao of ruthlessness, thereby achieving a breakthrough to the sacrifice Tao realm. However, most of the Tao companions of these female disciples met tragic ends. They were either abandoned or killed. You certainly didn't want to be one of them. Besides, you had no relation to the Ice Soul Holy Maiden, so why should you pay a hefty price to help her overcome an inner demon tribulation? The Ice Soul Holy Maiden seemed to see your concern and said that before coming, she had already arranged everything with Mystic Ice Taoist and Zantian Laozu, ensuring you would not suffer any loss. You were greatly surprised, exclaiming, "Nani, are you going to force a sale on me?" Indeed, Zantian Laozu soon arrived. He pulled you aside and persuaded you to accept this marriage. He said that Ice Soul Palace had prepared 5 top-tier Chaos Supreme treasures as a dowry. You said speechlessly, 5 top-tier Chaos Supreme treasures, and you sold me out. Sword Ancestor Zantian shook his head and said, of course not. Once you two become Tao companions, the relationship between Ice Soul Palace and Heaven-Severing Sword sect will reach a new level, and Mystic Ice Taoist can also become your backing. He continued, you also know in your heart that with your foundation, if you want to break through to the sacrifice Tao realm, other forces will definitely come to stop you. He and Mystic Ice Taoist working together could also give you a greater chance of breakthrough. What Sword Ancestor Zantian said seemed quite reasonable. But you were still quite unwilling to accept this marriage. However, this time you didn't directly refuse, but instead said that you needed to focus on preparing for the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament, and the Tao Companion ceremony would have to wait until after the Prodigy Tournament. Sword Ancestor Zantian's old face broke into a smile, saying there was no problem, as both sides had originally planned it that way. You didn't know if Sword Ancestor Zantian was genuinely happy for you or if there was another reason. Not long after you nodded, news spread throughout the sect that you and the Ice Soul Holy Maiden were to become Tao companions. This instantly saddened countless suitors of the Ice Soul Holy Maiden. Some expressed opposition, others said, they are a perfect match, who are you to object? This matter also had a significant impact when it reached other forces. Ice Soul Palace and Heaven-Severing Sword sect already had a good relationship. The strongest disciples of both sides becoming Tao companions. Was this a trend towards forming an alliance? Beneath the seemingly calm surface, undercurrents began to surge. Even Blood Wushang sent people to the Shadowless Hall, asking them to find a way to disrupt this marriage alliance. You were a little puzzled. What did this have to do with Blood Wushang? Did his reach extend so far? Could it be that he was one of the Ice Soul Holy Maiden's suitors? But you had never heard such rumors before, and given Blood Wushang's personality, he wasn't the type to be obsessed with beauty. You directly conveyed your question to the messenger. Since the Shadowless Hall provided the intel, your Tao body's relationship with Blood Wushang had grown considerably closer. Blood Wushang quickly replied, this is not as simple as a Tao companion ceremony. The sacrifice Tao realm has 3 disasters, 3 tribulations, and 3 difficulties. Zantian Laozu's fire disaster is approaching, and he wants to use Lu Changsheng as a trade to get Mystic Ice Taoist to help him overcome the fire disaster. Disrupting this Tao companion ceremony is essentially increasing the difficulty for Zantian Laozu to overcome his fire disaster. Only then did you realize that the old ancestor had truly sold you out. Originally, you had felt guilty for secretly eating the rare treasures he had planted. Now, that guilt was completely gone. Since he was using you, then don't blame you for using him. You remained calm, only cultivating even harder. The further you went, the more resources you consumed for every additional epoch of cultivation. Now, it required 30 million Dao crystals worth of resources to increase your cultivation by one epoch. Since Zhantian Laozu wanted to use you as a trade to overcome his fire disaster, then he would definitely not allow the relationship between the Shadowless Hall and you to be exposed. Thus, your Dao body's actions became increasingly rampant, making many places tremble at the mention of them. Especially the southern region, which was the hardest hit. Tianji Old Ancestor couldn't help but personally take action. But each of your Dao bodies had 6,000 epochs of cultivation. Working together, they could briefly contend with a sacrifice Dao realm expert. Unless Tianji Old Ancestor was willing to use sacrificial Dao power, it would be difficult to kill your Dao body. At the same time, Mystic Ice Taoist called the Ice Soul Holy Maiden and said she had a forbidden method that would allow the Ice Soul Holy Maiden to take half of your cultivation after dual cultivation with you. The Ice Soul Holy Maiden was unwilling to do so. She said that you were already very kind to help her overcome her inner demon tribulation, so how could she take your cultivation? Mystic Ice Taoist said that she was currently only caught in the inner demon tribulation and was a bit unclear, but she would eventually break free from it, and at that time, only cultivation would be everything. Furthermore, Zhantian Laozu had said that Liu Chengsheng's cultivation speed was astonishing, and even if he lost half his cultivation, he would be able to recultivate it back in no time. The Ice Soul Holy Maiden hesitated for a moment and finally accepted the Dao method. Oh well, when the time comes and I take Liu Chengsheng's cultivation, I'll compensate him, she thought. You were unaware of all this. Even if you knew, you would only sneer. Because you had no intention of holding the so-called Dao Companion ceremony with the Ice Soul Holy Maiden. According to your plan, as soon as the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament ended, you would begin to break through to the Sacrifice Dao realm. By then, everything would be up to you. 685. 9,000 years ago, the Buddha's son Bodhi. The mysterious crazy old man, the third in the immortal way. 3 years later, after consuming resources equivalent to 15 billion Dao crystals, your cultivation finally reached 9,000 epoch. This is an astonishing number. There is no clear record in the history of the Taichu realm of anyone reaching 9,000 epoch in cultivation. The only one who might have achieved it was Taichu Taoist, who originally created the Taichu realm. Among the few known Sacrifice Dao realm cultivators, the highest cultivation before their breakthrough to Sacrifice Dao was Mystic Ice Taoist, who only had 6,000 epoch of cultivation. She was not even as strong as Blood Wushang in the same realm. Now, even without the Taichu Divine Stone, you have a 90% chance of breaking through to the Sacrifice Dao realm. Of course, this is without external interference. In fact, the Sacrifice Dao old ancestors of the Taichu realm are not pleased to see the emergence of other Sacrifice Dao realm cultivators. After all, resources are limited, and one more Sacrifice Dao realm means one less share for them. Historically, several prodigies who reached 7,000 epoch in cultivation died at the hands of Sacrifice Dao realm cultivators during their breakthrough. This is also a significant reason why some highly cultivated reclusive masters in the current era dare not attempt a breakthrough. Now, with Sword Ancestor Zhantian and Mystic Ice Taoist protecting your Dao, the probability of your successful breakthrough is quite high. Of course, your goal has always been the 10,000 Dao realm. You are not far from this goal. Shortly after you exited seclusion, Jingming Monk, the Buddhist son of Bodhi Zen Temple, suddenly came to challenge you to a match. Jingming Monk possesses 4,000 epoch of cultivation. When you defeated Shanglong, the Tianfa Peak Master, your displayed strength was similar to his. There has always been debate in the outside world about who is stronger between the two of you. Jingming Monk had just returned from training in other realms and was very curious about this, so he specifically sought you out for a spar. You did not refuse his request. With your current strength, you could defeat him with a single move. But that would be too shocking, so you used a full 3 moves to defeat him. Jingming Monk could not help but exclaim that you were indeed a heaven-sent genius. Afterward, you hosted a banquet for him and inquired about other realms. According to Jingming Monk, the Taichu realm is currently the strongest known realm. However, there are similar powerful realms among other realms. For example, the mountain and sea world is 90% the size of the Taichu realm. It also has 4 Sacrifice Dao realm powerhouses. Another example is the Jutian realm, which is 70% the size of the Taichu realm, with about 3 sacrifice Dao powerhouses. You asked curiously, the Taichu realm is so powerful, but it was created by Taichu Taoist. Then what is Taichu Taoist's cultivation realm? Is he in the other shore realm, which is above the sacrifice Dao? Jingming monk said that he also did not know. But his master, Bodhi Zen master, always showed respect whenever he mentioned Taichu Taoist. It is not impossible for Taichu Taoist to be in the other shore realm. Jingming monk, on the other hand, was curious about your true cultivation realm. You patted your chest and said that you only had 5,000 epoch of cultivation. Really? Jingming monk felt that you were lying. The oppressive feeling you gave him was much more than that. He felt that you might have 6,000 or 7,000 epoch of cultivation. You said that you were not a monk, so couldn't you lie? After speaking, you began to usher him out. 5 years later, you again increased your cultivation by 700 epoch. The further you progressed, the slower the growth rate became. At this rate, it would probably be difficult to break through to the 10,000 Dao realm before the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament. You knew it was time to continue strengthening the Immortal Dao principles. You began to continue integrating Dao principles to raise the grade of the Immortal Dao principles. The Shadowless Hall continued to plunder resources. Due to the increase in your main body's strength, all 9 of your 9 Daoshan had cultivation levels close to 8,000 epoch. This was equivalent to 8 blood Wushangs. The destructive power caused was astonishing. Of course, your Dao body would certainly not go all out to avoid being attacked by all sacrifice Dao realm cultivators. But even displaying a portion of their strength gave several top-tier forces a massive headache. The Blood Dragon army only plagued the central region back then, while the Shadowless Hall plagued the entire Taichu realm. The harm caused far exceeded that of the Blood Dragon army. Even the sacrifice Dao old ancestors regretted not fully eradicating the Shadowless Hall back then. Now that the Shadowless Hall had grown strong, it was not so easy to catch them all in one go. Because now even the sacrifice Dao old ancestors could not capture their high-ranking members. Another half a year passed, and then a shocking piece of news suddenly spread throughout the outside world. The Guan Yu realm was destroyed. The Guan Yu realm was 30% the size of the Taichu realm. It also had 2 sacrifice Dao realm powerhouses. It was unbelievable that such a powerful realm could be annihilated, and even its 2 sacrifice Dao realm powerhouses were severely injured and fled. Sacrifice Dao powerhouses generally do not kill each other, as no one can afford retaliation. Even the 9 Nether Demon sect developed secretly in the Taichu realm, and the major top-tier forces turned a blind eye. If other sacrifice Dao forces had jointly done such a thing, it would indeed be difficult to understand. However, not long after, more news came out. This was not done by a coalition of sacrifice Dao realm forces. The Guan Yu realm was destroyed by a crazy old man. Your Dao body asked Sword Ancestor Zantian what was going on. Sword Ancestor Zantian sighed and said that he also did not know where this crazy old man came from. Previously, he had tried to come to the Taichu realm. It was the combined effort of several sacrifice Dao realm cultivators in the Taichu realm that drove him away. You did not expect that Sword Ancestor Zantian's disappearance for several months earlier was due to this matter. You asked what realm that crazy old man was in. Zantian Laozu said that the sacrifice Dao realm has 3 disasters, 3 tribulations, and 3 difficulties, and that crazy old man was most likely a powerhouse of the 3 tribulations realm. At the same time, Blood Wushang also issued a notice to the Shadowless Hall, telling them not to go to other realms recently. You asked if it was because of the crazy old man. Blood Wushang said yes, that old man most likely came from the same place as him. Blood Wushang's strength was astonishing, but he seemed to have appeared suddenly, without any past experience. The crazy old man was the same. Now Blood Wushang said that the 2 came from the same place. Could it be another super large realm? You asked Blood Wushang, what kind of place is that? Blood Wushang, uncharacteristically, did not reply this time. It seemed that he also did not want to reveal his origins. Or perhaps he was wary of something. Afterward, feeling a bottleneck, you continued to improve the Immortal Dao principles. 1 year later, your Immortal Dao principles reached 9th place on the 10,000 Dao ranking. 3 years later, your Immortal Dao principles reached 8th place on the 10,000 Dao ranking. 5 years later, your Immortal Dao principles reached 7th place on the 10,000 Dao ranking. 16 years later, your Immortal Dao principles reached 3rd place on the 10,000 Dao ranking. At this point, there was still 1 year until the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament began. 686. Break through all the ways and ascend to the ladder to heaven. There are gaps and there are changes in plans. Next, you focused entirely on improving your cultivation. In just 3 months, your cultivation successfully reached 9,999 epochs. You were only 1 step away from the 10,000 Dao realm. But at this point, you had a faint premonition that if you were to break through to the 10,000 Dao realm, the commotion would likely be significant. Thus, you quietly left the Taichu realm. You entered a medium-sized realm called Tianchong. 10 days later, your cultivation finally reached 10,000 epochs. You successfully broke through to the 10,000 Dao realm. Your physical body, divine soul, and cultivation all underwent a transformation. Half a year later, the transformation was complete. In the Tianchong realm, an immortal ladder appeared, with dragon and phoenix cries resonating, soaring directly into the immortal palace in the sky. The grand ascension ladder phenomenon, centered in the Tianchong realm, spread to dozens of surrounding realms. Even the Taichu realm had immortal ladders filling the sky. Ascension ladder, this was a legendary phenomenon said to only occur when someone broke through to the 10,000 Dao realm. Because it was said that only the 10,000 Dao realm offered hope of breaking through to the other shore realm. This was the origin of the ascension ladder. Many people were shocked. Even sacrifice Dao realm experts were no exception. 10,000 Dao realm experts only existed in legends, being 10 or even 100 times rarer than sacrifice Dao realm experts. Unexpectedly, today everyone witnessed this miracle. Many sacrifice Dao realm experts began searching for the source of the phenomenon. Soon, they found the Tianchong realm. However, by then, you had already departed. They were destined to find nothing. There were still 3 months until the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament. The excitement was at an unprecedented high. But due to the appearance of the Ascension Ladder, even the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament's excitement was overshadowed. Meanwhile, you began to examine the changes after your transformation. Firstly, your strength, compared to when you were at 9,999 epochs, had increased by 4 or 5 times. This change was extremely astonishing. You were originally capable of fighting a sacrifice Dao realm expert in their normal state. Now, with an increase of 4 or 5 times, even sacrificial Dao power would likely struggle to harm you. As for a sacrifice Dao realm expert in their normal state, they would be no match for you. Even without breaking through, you were stronger than many sacrifice Dao realm experts. Because sacrificial Dao power is prone to backlash from heaven and earth, it cannot be used for long and can only serve as a trump card. However, your strength was normalized. In other words, you were now equivalent to a sacrifice Dao realm expert who constantly activated sacrificial Dao power. This was quite terrifying. Unknowingly, you had reached such a height. But, all of this was what you deserved. You worked 10 or 100 times harder than ordinary people. Is it not perfectly reasonable for an Immortal Emperor to beat up a sacrifice Dao expert? Of course, if several sacrifice Dao realm experts teamed up, they would still pose a significant threat to you. Your current strength allowed you to break through to the sacrifice Dao realm at any time. The Taichu Divine Stone was already dispensable. However, no one would complain about having too many treasures. Even if you didn't use it, you could trade it. Besides the Taichu Divine Stone, you still lacked complete experience regarding breaking through to the sacrifice Dao realm. After all, one should always plan before acting to ensure nothing goes wrong. Even if you were a 10,000 Dao realm expert, you still needed to be fully prepared. You told Zantian Laozu that after obtaining the Taichu Divine Stone, you were ready to break through to sacrifice Dao. You hoped he could offer some guidance. Zantian Laozu was a bit surprised, not expecting you to be so confident. But he still imparted his experience to you. According to Zantian Laozu, there were 2 ways to break through to the sacrifice Dao realm. One was the incomplete sacrificial Dao method, and the other was the complete sacrificial Dao method. You asked what incomplete and complete meant. Zantian Laozu said that incomplete meant that after breaking through to the sacrifice Dao realm, one would need to pay a certain price to use sacrificial Dao power. Whereas, complete meant one could mobilize sacrificial Dao power anytime, anywhere. Naturally, the 2 methods resulted in vastly different outcomes after breakthrough. You didn't expect there to be so many intricacies involved. You asked Zantian Laozu whether the method he taught you was the incomplete or complete method. Zhantian Laozu rolled his eyes at you and said it was naturally the incomplete method. Currently, the methods for breaking through to sacrifice Tao were mostly passed down by Taichu Taoist. What circulated outside were all incomplete methods. The true complete method was probably only known by the Taichu Divine Emperor. However, the Taichu Divine Emperor himself also broke through using the incomplete method. He once said that to achieve a complete breakthrough to sacrifice Tao, one would at least need to be in the 10,000 Tao realm. It was estimated that only the mysterious prodigy from a few days ago could achieve it. At this point, Zhantian Laozu mysteriously asked you another question. He asked if that mysterious prodigy might be you. You quickly waved your hand, saying that your cultivation was not even 7,000 epochs, far from the 10,000 Tao realm. That person might be Blood Wushang. After all, his cultivation technique could rapidly enhance cultivation through blood sacrifice. Zhantian Laozu sighed, saying that if it were Blood Wushang, it would be terrible. By then, many realms would surely fall into chaos and disaster. You secretly chuckled, thinking Zhantian Laozu was worrying needlessly. In reality, the one who broke through to the 10,000 Tao realm was not the evil Blood Wushang, but you, a person of great virtue and kindness. You were benevolent, a defender of peace, so such a thing was impossible to happen. However, it seemed very necessary to visit the Taichu Divine Dynasty. The complete sacrificial Tao method was too important, you absolutely had to get your hands on it. In comparison, the Taichu Divine Stone had become secondary. Another month passed, and the excitement surrounding the Ascension Ladder gradually subsided. Heaven-severing Sword Sect was also preparing to set off for the central region. Normally, the sect leader would lead the team. Ever since Wang Tong lost to you in the Forbidden Land last time, he couldn't quite face you. This time, he simply handed over the right to lead the team to you. He himself was only responsible for exchanging pleasantries with old friends. The venue for this competition was still the Prodigy Arena in the imperial capital of the Taichu Divine Dynasty in the central region. You had just arrived. Blood Wushang sent a message to your Tao body in Shadowless Hall, saying that this time, he and Yin Qianji had already contacted several sacrifice Tao realm experts from outside the realm, planning to cause a huge disturbance at the 5 Regions Prodigy Tournament and steal the Taichu Divine Stone. Blood Wushang hoped Shadowless Hall could also join in. You didn't expect Blood Wushang to dare pull such a stunt again. Since he invited you, you naturally agreed. Whether you exerted effort or not, as an insider, being able to constantly monitor the movements of Blood Wushang and others was greatly beneficial to you. After Shadowless Hall agreed, a few days later, Blood Wushang, who had not appeared for a long time, personally came to the Shadowless Hall headquarters. He said the plan had changed. This time, in addition to seizing the Taichu Divine Stone, they also had to kill someone. Your Tao body asked who. Blood Wushang slowly uttered a name, Lu Chong Sheng. 687. Money to buy life, Yin Guang provokes. The way of destruction is complete, defeat the enemy with one move. Your Tao body was greatly alarmed, but on the surface, it remained calm and said, you and Lu Chengsheng should not have any grievances, right? Blood Wushang said that there were indeed no grievances between them, but this time, the 9 Nether Demon God also joined in. The 9 Nether Demon God's only condition for acting was to kill Lu Chengsheng. He and Yin Qianji had already agreed. Behind Lu Chengsheng were Zhantian Laozu and Mystic Ice Taoist. They would block these two, and then the Shadowless Hall would be responsible for killing Lu Chengsheng. Of course, the 9 Nether Demon God would not let the Shadowless Hall work for free, he would pay 50 billion Tao crystals at that time. You secretly chuckled. Blood Wushang and the 9 Nether Demon God certainly had good plans, shifting all the hatred onto the Shadowless Hall. Seeing the hesitation on your Tao body's face, Blood Wushang's expression darkened. What, can't you do it? No. Your Tao body quickly waved its hand, saying that Lu Chengsheng was a contender with the potential to win the championship, so this matter was extremely risky and required more money. Ultimately, Blood Wushang bought your life for the price of 100 billion Tao crystals. As for the money, it naturally had to be paid in advance. The Shadowless Hall did not accept post-payment. After breaking through to the 10,000 Tao realm, the resources you consumed increased terrifyingly with each epoch of cultivation you gained. Currently, it had reached 100 million Tao crystals in resources to increase 1 epoch of cultivation. These 100 billion Tao crystals would amount to 100 epochs of cultivation. Anyway, it was found money, there was no reason not to take it. As for assassinating Lu Changsheng, you couldn't possibly kill yourself, could you? You had originally wanted to let the Shadowless Hall cause a ruckus with Blood Wushang. Unexpectedly, he actually wanted to make a move on you. If he was unkind, then you couldn't be blamed for being unrighteous. At that time, you would give him a big surprise. In the divine capital, your main body also encountered its first provocateur. This person was none other than the champion of the previous 5-session Prodigy Convention, Yin Guang. You are Lu Changsheng. Yin Guang blocked your path and said coldly, if you know what's good for you, you'll dissolve the so-called Tao Companion Agreement with the Ice Soul Holy Maiden as soon as possible, otherwise, you'll lose very badly on the arena. This was yet another trouble brought about by a femme fatale. You turned and left, not wanting to bother with him at all. These past few days, you had encountered over a dozen such people. Even though Yin Guang was the previous champion, in your eyes, he was no different from those others. Yin Guang, however, thought you were afraid of him, and a triumphant smile appeared on his face. 2 months passed in a flash, and soon it was time for the Prodigy Convention to officially begin. During this period, your strength had increased by another 300 epochs. This meant that you had consumed resources worth 30 billion Tao crystals. This almost completely depleted all the resources you had on hand. Continuing to increase epic cultivation was too terrifying. Fortunately, you had already broken through to the 10,000 Tao realm and could 100% break through to the sacrifice Tao. As long as you obtained the complete sacrificial Tao method, you could immediately break through. Otherwise, this kind of consumption would be difficult for even the Shadowless Hall to sustain. Of course, there was still a way to continue improving rapidly. Don't forget, the immortal Tao principles could devour the sentient power of belief related to them to enhance your cultivation. The Taichu realm was a super large realm composed of thousands of realms. If the immortal Tao were to be spread here, the sentient power of belief it would bring to you would undoubtedly be extremely astonishing. At that time, you wouldn't need to devour resources, but rather just devour the sentient power of belief. However, there were still several sacrifice Tao realm experts above you. These few people all had their own spheres of influence, each occupying a region. If they were not dealt with, it would certainly be difficult to spread widely. And this, you could only act according to circumstances. Besides the 300 epochs of cultivation, there was another huge surprise in these past few months. That was, your sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Tao had reached major achievement. The sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Tao was Zhantian Laozu's strongest sword art. Its major achievement was enough to significantly increase your strength. It also gave you more confidence for the upcoming, acting according to circumstances. Due to the Taichu Divine Stone, this session of the Prodigy Convention was far more lively than previous ones. Firstly, all the sacrifice Tao realm experts of the Taichu realm came to observe the battles. The momentum was grand. Among the contestants, not only did various old geezers appear, but even prodigies from other realms came to participate. Among them, 5 or 6 had cultivation exceeding 6,000 epochs. The one with the highest cultivation even reached 6,900 epochs, nearly 7,000 epochs. This caused quite a stir. Many people thought you had a chance to win the championship, but now it seemed the hope was slim. After the first round of eliminations, almost everyone below the Immortal Emperor was eliminated. After the second round of eliminations, only experts of the 100 Tao realm remained. After the third round of eliminations, almost only 1,000 Tao realm experts were left standing in the arena. Everyone knew that the final champion would be decided among these dozens of 1,000 Tao realm experts. Of course, most of them were just accompanying the race. Those with cultivation below 6,000 epochs had no hope at all. In the first 3 rounds of eliminations, you performed adequately. Gradually, you went from being a favorite to win the championship to a favorite for the top 10. Yin Guang also provoked you several times. However, the two of you did not meet in the arena. It wasn't until the 4th round of eliminations that you and Yin Guang finally became opponents. In the previous Prodigy Convention, Yin Guang only had 5,000 epochs of cultivation. Only 10 billion years had passed, and his cultivation had actually reached 6,300 epochs, making him one of the favorites to win the championship. After all, he was only a few hundred epochs behind the strongest person. This small gap could be completely compensated for with external objects. Many people lamented that the Taichu Divine Dynasty had produced a true dragon. If nothing unexpected happened, Yin Guang would definitely become the third sacrifice Dao realm expert of the Taichu divine dynasty. He might even be the strongest one. However, he was also one of the Ice Soul Holy Maiden's suitors. And you were about to become Dao companions with the Ice Soul Holy Maiden. This was going to be a good show. Many people showed expressions of schadenfreude. Yin Guang's face was arrogant, and he clasped his hands and said, "It's still not too late for you to surrender now, otherwise, don't blame me for bullying the young." What greeted him was only a flash of sword light. This sword light did not seem very powerful. Yin Guang did not take this sword light seriously either, merely casually striking out with his top-grade supreme treasure, the dragon-breaking spear. Unexpectedly, this sword light directly cut his dragon-breaking spear in half. And its momentum did not decrease, landing on his body. This was a top-grade Chaos Supreme treasure. Yin Guang was greatly startled, activating his protective treasure, but it had no effect whatsoever, and he was directly dismembered by this sword light, his limbs severed, and blood splattered. 688. The first of the Tianzhao, the mighty from outside the domain has arrived. The battle of the sacrificial way, not a single tile will be left. The arena was silent. No one expected Yin Guang, with his 6,000 epochs of cultivation, to be instantly killed by a single move. It's the minor achievement sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Tao. The sect leader of the Celestial Mystery Gate recognized this sword technique. What? This is Zantian Laozu's signature skill. He's only at the Great Tao realm, yet he managed to cultivate it to the minor achievement realm. Exclamations immediately erupted throughout the arena. Bastard! Only the Taichu Divine Emperor shattered the armrest of his dragon throne and stood up. Yin Guang had the potential to be a champion, but now he's been crippled by you. With his injuries, he won't be able to participate in the upcoming matches. It'll be difficult for him to even make it into the top 10. How could the Taichu Divine Emperor's hatred not be immense? It's just a dispute between juniors. Divine Emperor, calm down a bit, don't be so angry. Sword Ancestor Zantian chuckled, also standing up to prevent him from attacking you. The Taichu Divine Emperor finally waved his hand, ordering people to carry Yin Guang away for treatment. He then sat down with a gloomy expression, pondering something unknown. Possessing the minor achievement sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Tao, even if you only displayed 5,000 epochs of cultivation, you were still invincible in the grand competition. Mystic Ice Taoist was also very satisfied with the situation. This was how her Mystic Ice Palace's son-in-law should be. A few days later, you defeated all opponents with a perfect record, successfully winning the championship of this 5 Regions Prodigy tournament. The Taichu Divine Emperor reluctantly took out the Taichu Divine Stone, which he had kept for a long time. This was a fist-sized jade stone with a purple-green glow. As soon as it appeared, everyone in the imperial capital felt their divine soul elevate, experiencing an illusion of ascension in broad daylight. However, at this moment, suddenly, 7 dazzling rays of light struck from an extremely distant place. They instantly shattered the imperial capital's city-protecting grand formation. Finally, 7 terrifying figures appeared outside the imperial capital. Blood Wushang, Yin Qianji, and 9 Nether Demon God were among them. The other 4 were the 4 Sacrifice Tao Realm Masters from the Mountain and Sea world. The number of Sacrifice Tao Realm experts on the field instantly reached a terrifying 11. What's going on? The people of the imperial capital, including the prodigies, immediately fell into panic. Sacrifice Tao realm experts are invincible in the world, overlooking all. Normally, it's hard to even see one. This time, 5 came only because of the 5 Regions Prodigy tournament. Unexpectedly, 6 more Sacrifice Tao realm experts arrived. And 4 of them are from the Mountain and Sea world. Is this the prelude to a realm war? Old Freak Wuji, Tao Ancestor Juding, Ancestral Master Moxen, Soul-Devouring Evil Phoenix, you from the Mountain and Sea world have always kept to yourselves with my Taichu realm. Why have you come to my Taichu realm this time? The Taichu Divine Emperor's expression changed, and he immediately put away the Taichu Divine Stone, asking loudly. Old Freak Wuji, the bald, long-bearded man among them, chuckled, of course, we came to snatch the Taichu Divine Stone. Otherwise, what would we be here for? Ancestral Master Moxen, clad in a black kasaya, snorted coldly, your Taichu realm already has 5 Sacrifice Tao realm experts. If another one appears, wouldn't you forever suppress my Mountain and Sea world? If you know what's good for you today, hand over the item, or else this imperial capital, and even the entire central region, will be turned into ruins. The Taichu Divine Emperor's face was extremely grim. Although the imperial capital was protected by various grand formations, it could never withstand a battle involving 10 sacrificed Dao realm experts. If the imperial capital were destroyed, it would be difficult to rebuild. Because if one dies at the hands of a sacrificed Dao realm expert, it's hard to even resurrect. Divine Emperor, no need to worry. We, as fellow great powers of the Taichu realm, will not stand by and do nothing. Mystic Ice Taoist, Sword Ancestor Zantian, Bodhi Zen Master, and Tianji Old Ancestor also stood up. Of course, they would only not stand by and do nothing. Whether the imperial capital could be preserved was none of their business. In any case, this Taichu Divine Stone absolutely could not be stolen. Very well, it seems there's no room for discussion. The soul-devouring evil phoenix from the mountain and sea world sneered and attacked first. Large swaths of black flames scattered downwards. The billions of living beings in the imperial capital immediately felt their divine soul being scorched by the flames, experiencing immense pain. Only those at the Thousand Dao realm felt a little better. And these people were not the direct targets of the black flames. They were merely affected by the residual power. You, however, watched curiously at the painful expressions of others. Is it really that painful? Why do you not feel anything at all? Shadowless Hall, it's your turn to act. Blood Wusheng saw your figure from afar and sneered. Subsequently, 8 powerful figures immediately emerged. The leader, cackling strangely, said that Lu Chengsheng will be handled by the 7 elders. This hall master will relieve some pressure for you here. Blood Wusheng couldn't help but be greatly moved. These people from Shadowless Hall were indeed loyal and righteous. The 7 elders of Shadowless Hall descended upon the imperial capital, each displaying 6,000 epochs of cultivation, and jointly attacked you. They possessed a combined sword formation that could actually withstand your minor achievement sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Tao. You constantly retreated, enacting a chase scene in the imperial capital. The 7 elders of Shadowless Hall chased while looting along the way. Wherever they passed, not a single tile remained. You sought help from the other prodigies of the 5 regions prodigy tournament, but they avoided you like the plague. Shadowless Hall's reputation for ferocity was well known. Even sacrificed Dao realm experts found it difficult to deal with them. Who would dare to step forward and help you? If no sacrificed Dao realm expert intervened, you would likely face certain death. Good, 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 you're all going to stand by and do nothing, are you? You became ruthless and ran directly towards crowded areas. Those people then suffered terribly. The lucky ones were merely plundered by Shadowless Hall, while the unlucky ones directly perished. After causing havoc among this group of prodigies, you stopped leading the 7 elders of Shadowless Hall in circles around the imperial capital. Finally, you even ran into the imperial palace, plundering the treasure vault of the Taichu Divine Dynasty. To onlookers, you didn't seem to be chased. Instead, you looked like a guide. Blood Wusheng also had a headache over this. This Shadowless Hall couldn't change their ways. Can't they kill the person first, then plunder? However, seeing Lu Chengsheng at a disadvantage, Shadowless Hall should eventually be able to complete their mission. In the blink of an eye, both sides had been fighting for half an hour. The 11 sacrificed Dao realm experts fought with true fury, all unleashing their sacrificial Dao power. Any sacrificial Dao power could increase the might of their every move and strike tenfold. Even though the imperial capital was deliberately protected by the Taichu Divine Emperor, most of it had turned into ruins, only the imperial palace remained somewhat intact. Fortunately, most of the imperial capital's treasures had been plundered by Shadowless Hall, otherwise, losing them in the battle would have been too great a pity. 689. Who is the yellow bird, stabbing blood without death in the back? 10 suns, dominating the world. Seeing that both sides' sacrificial Dao experts were injured and their auras significantly diminished, Blood Wusheng felt the time was right and took out a talisman inscribed with a sword seal. As soon as the talisman appeared, a terrifying aura permeated the air, causing all sacrificial Dao realm cultivators present to change their expressions. Blood Wusheng, confident of victory, said, "This contains a seal of a true sacrificial Dao expert strike. If you pseudo-sacrificial Dao cultivators still refuse to hand over the Taichu Divine Stone, you can try its power." As soon as these words were spoken, all the other surviving people on the scene were shocked. What did he mean by that? Could it be the Taichu Divine Emperor and the others were not considered true sacrificial Dao experts? You were also greatly surprised. You thought of the incomplete and complete methods that Zantian Laozu had mentioned. Could it be that sacrificial Dao realm cultivators who break through with an incomplete method are not considered true sacrificial Dao cultivators? It seemed highly possible. After all, how could a sacrificial Dao expert suffer backlash when using sacrificial Dao power? This was clearly unreasonable. If they were pseudo-sacrificial Dao, then it made perfect sense. However, Blood Wusheng stepping forward now, did he think he was the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? Facing Blood Wusheng's threat, Taichu Divine Emperor, Sword Ancestor Zantian, and the other 5 sacrificial Dao experts of the Taichu realm looked at each other. Ultimately, Taichu Divine Emperor chose to yield and took out the Taichu Divine Stone. In any case, even if this item wasn't taken out, it belonged to the Heaven-Severing Sword Sect. There was no need to fight to the death over something belonging to the Heaven-Severing Sword Sect. Sword Ancestor Zantian sighed upon seeing this scene. It seemed his disciple Lu Chengsheng was, after all, fated to not enjoy this Taichu Divine Stone. Blood Wusheng's mood greatly improved after receiving the Taichu Divine Stone. At this moment, 9 Nether Demon God said eerily, "Don't forget our agreement." Blood Wusheng snorted coldly, pointing at you, who were still fleeing, and said he still wanted your life. At this, Zantian Laozu could no longer sit still and immediately jumped out, saying it was absolutely impossible and that he would rather go down fighting. Tianji Old Ancestor advised him not to get agitated, saying that even if Lu Chengsheng didn't die today, the other sacrificial Dao cultivators among them would not give him a breakthrough opportunity. Zantian Laozu cast his gaze towards Mystic Ice Taoist. She remained silent. Never mind, let's just say his fortune was shallow. Sword Ancestor Zantian sighed, waved his hand, and reluctantly compromised. You saw this scene not with anger, but with unprecedented calm. Countless experiences told you that others were unreliable, only your own strength could be relied upon. Although you were the favored successor of the Heaven-Severing Sword Sect, in the face of greater losses, he would ultimately push you out. Finally, you seemed disheartened and surprisingly gave up resisting, allowing yourself to be captured by an elder of the Shadowless Hall and brought before Blood Wusheng. Seeing that the situation was settled, Blood Wusheng put away the sword talisman. However, just as he put it away, a sharp blade suddenly pierced his chest from behind. He turned back in disbelief, looking at the Shadowless Hall Master who had attacked him, not understanding why. Sorry, I am Lu Chengsheng's Dao body. The Shadowless Hall Master smiled, then, along with his main body and other Dao body, attacked Blood Wusheng, turning him into a pulp. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. It was only at the moment of his death that Blood Wusheng understood. It turned out he wasn't the oriole, he had always been the mantis. And you were the final oriole. The other sacrificial Dao cultivators were also stunned by this turn of events. They hadn't expected you to have such a relationship with the Shadowless Hall. Even more unexpectedly, your strength was astonishing. Haha, as expected of the most outstanding prodigy of my Heaven-Severing Sword Sect, to be able to turn the tide. Sword Ancestor Zantian walked over with a hearty laugh, but what greeted him was a flash of sword light. This sword light severed his arm, leaving him in disbelief. You looked at him and said indifferently, "From now on, the bond between us is severed." The other sacrificial Dao cultivators on the scene watched this, not expecting another twist. Tianji Old Ancestor was the first to step forward, scolding, "You formed the Shadowless Hall, plundering everywhere and harming all living beings, and now you even dare to betray your master and destroy your ancestors. I, this old ancestor, shall act on behalf of the heavens today." With that, he took out the heavenly mechanism lock and attacked you. At this moment, you no longer held back your strength, and the aura of the 10,000 Dao realm spread out. With just one palm, you grasped Tianji Old Ancestor, who struggled in vain. So you were that mysterious 10,000 Dao realm cultivator who had a breakthrough a few months ago. Everyone finally knew your true identity at this point. They hadn't expected you to hide so deeply. Mystic Ice Taoist also stepped forward and questioned, "Lu Chengsheng, what is the meaning of this? Do you intend to become an enemy of all our forces?" 9 Nether Demon God laughed wildly, "I think he's become overly confident after his breakthrough to the 10,000 Dao realm and has already fallen into chi deviation. If that's the case, why not eliminate him together?" Did you fall into chi deviation? Of course not. These sacrificial Dao cultivators had just gone through a major battle, and their strength had weakened considerably. and as your strength increased, you needed more resources. You would sooner or later confront them. If you didn't act now, were you going to wait until they all recovered before making your move? Taichu Divine Emperor hesitated, but he has that sword talisman. 9 Nether Demon God seemed to know the inside story and said without changing his expression, "Don't worry, that sword talisman requires a special secret technique to activate. We can definitely take him down." However, no sooner had he spoken. Your 9 Daoshan all revealed their auras. Including your main body, the Taichu realm suddenly had 10 blazing, sun-like auras, causing everyone's expressions to change. The 4 sacrificial Dao experts from the mountain and sea world turned and fled. This was a monster, what was the point of fighting? 9 Nether Demon God also wanted to escape, but he was surrounded by 2 of your Dao body from front and back. Taichu Divine Emperor was even more miserable, as he faced 3 Dao body. Others could escape, but Taichu Divine Emperor had to stay. Because he possessed the complete sacrificial Dao method that you urgently needed. The remaining 4 Dao body were dealing with Yin Qianji, Sword Ancestor Zantian, Mystic Ice Taoist, and Bodhi Zen Master respectively. They had just gone through a major battle and had used sacrificial Dao power, so they were at their lowest point of strength. Even one-on-one, they were no match for your Dao body. Not to mention 4 had run away, allowing you to fight with more against fewer. How could they win? But Zantian Laozu seemed unconvinced. Your sword techniques were all taught by him, and now you were using a single Dao body to deal with him. Who were you looking down on? However, when your Dao body used the major achievement sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Dao, and almost split him in half with one sword, his expression finally changed. Although he had already overestimated your aptitude, you still exceeded his expectations. Thinking of the sword technique he had painstakingly created over countless years, only for you to achieve major achievement in just a few decades, he instantly felt an indescribable sense of frustration. 690. Defeat all enemies and kill Bingpo, the Lord of the Realm, transcending the Saint Realm. On the other side, your Dao body had already captured the 9 Nether Demon God and the Taichu Divine Emperor. Seeing that the general situation was lost, the Mystic Ice Taoist, Yin Qianji, and Bodhi Zen Master, risking serious injury, once again used their sacrificial Dao power to forcefully break through. They also rescued Sword Ancestor Zantian along the way. Where there's life, there's hope. As long as these sacrificial Dao old ancestors were still alive, their sect would not be destroyed. The other survivors on the field, seeing this scene, were filled with disbelief and incredulity, as if they were in a dream. Those were 11 sacrificial Dao realm old ancestors, united together, it was simply impossible for anyone to resist. However, they were scattered and fled by you alone, and 3 of them became your prisoners. This was simply a fantasy. But the facts were laid out before them, and they had to believe it, even if they didn't want to. My husband, the Ice Soul Holy Maiden, who had been abandoned by the Mystic Ice Taoist, now approached with a shy expression. Hearing her sweet voice, your body shuddered. She had always coveted your physical body, wanting to force a transaction. You had tolerated her for a long time. Now that you were invincible, who would still indulge her? Die for me, you backhanded her, flattening her into a meat patty. Yin Guang, whose limbs had been severed, lay on the palace square, staring blankly at the scene. He actually still wanted to compete with you for a woman, it was truly the biggest joke. The funniest part was that you didn't care about the Ice Soul Holy Maiden at all. Yet he had pursued her for so long. He was truly humiliated to the core. Greetings, Lord of Taichu Realm. Suddenly, 1,000 Dao Realm expert in the crowd knelt down and shouted. Lord of Taichu Realm. This was a very ancient title. Only Taichu Taoist, who originally created the Taichu realm, had enjoyed this title. With the disappearance of Taichu Taoist, no one was able to dominate the Taichu realm. This title naturally went unmentioned. Now, you, alone, defeated 11 sacrificial Dao realm experts. If you don't deserve this title, who does? The others immediately knelt down in a dense mass, shouting in unison, Greetings, Lord of Taichu realm. You were very pleased with everyone's sensibility. Those who were able to survive the battle just now were all top experts in the realm. You appeased them for a bit, then let your Dao body handle the remaining mess. Since a few sacrificial Dao realm experts had been driven away. Next, it was natural to integrate all forces in the Taichu realm. This would facilitate your collection of resources and the spread of the immortal Dao, to enhance your strength. Of course, whether it was integrating forces or spreading the immortal Tao, both were massive undertakings. Large projects were quite tiring, so they should naturally be left to the Tao body. You weren't the kind of person who was reluctant to delegate power, right? As for your main body, you entered a deeper space to search the divine soul of your prisoners, Tianji Old Ancestor, 9 Nether Demon God, Taichu Divine Emperor, and Blood Wushang. The first one you searched was naturally Blood Wushang. Although his physical body was destroyed by you, his divine soul was collected by you. His origin was mysterious, suspected to be from another powerful realm. Moreover, you were very interested in the pseudo-sacrificial Tao realm, he mentioned. After searching Blood Wushang's divine soul, your expression gradually changed from calm to shock. He indeed came from another powerful place, but that place was not a realm, but was called the Transcendent Saint Realm. That place was built by 8 Transcendent, almost gathering all the top experts from all realms. Sacrificial Tao realm experts there were as numerous as carps crossing the river. Blood Wushang came from a demonic path sect established by a sacrificial Tao realm peak expert. As for how to get there, according to Blood Wushang's memory, there were only 2 methods. One was through the guiding divine talisman created by other Shore realm experts in the Transcendent Saint realm. The second was to break through the sacrificial Tao with a flawless method. At that time, a guiding force would naturally descend, allowing one to ascend to the Transcendent Saint realm. More than 1,000 years ago, when Blood Wushang was exploring a dangerous place in the Transcendent Saint realm, he accidentally entered a spatial Lifeng and was then teleported here. He did not possess a divine item like the guiding divine talisman. So he naturally chose the second method, becoming a flawless sacrificial Tao and ascending to the Transcendent Saint realm. Your previous assumption was not wrong. Flawless sacrificial Tao was the true sacrificial Tao realm. Imperfect sacrificial Tao could also be considered sacrificial Tao, but in the Transcendent Saint realm, it could only be called a pseudo-sacrificial Tao realm. This kind of sacrificial Tao realm, after breakthrough, not only had mediocre strength, but also couldn't use sacrificial Tao power normally. It could be said that pseudo-sacrificial Tao realm experts were at the bottom of the contempt chain in the Transcendent Saint realm, with almost no hope of breaking through to the other Shore realm, let alone becoming a transcendent. And the conditions for becoming a flawless sacrificial Tao were the same as what Zhang Laozu had said before. One was the 10,000 Tao realm cultivation, and the second was the flawless sacrificial Tao method. The flawless sacrificial Tao method, in these, lower realm, like the Taichu realm, was naturally extremely precious. But in the Transcendent Saint realm, it was nothing special. Blood Wushang possessed several such methods. This was an unexpected pleasant surprise. Besides this, Blood Wushang also knew the true use of the Taichu Divine Stone. This item was also relatively precious in the Transcendent Saint realm, known as the Epic Saint Stone. It was created by other Shore realm experts for their descendants. One piece could increase a cultivator's cultivation by 5,000 epic. The Taichu Divine Emperor and Yin Qianji, who had already used the Epic Saint Stone, simply did not know its correct usage. Instead, they mistakenly believed that it was used to help people break through to the sacrificial Tao realm. It was truly a waste of heavenly resources. Blood Wushang's goal all along had been this Epic Saint Stone. The previous rumor about wanting to break through to the sacrificial Tao realm was just to mislead the Taichu Divine Emperor. He did eventually obtain the Epic Saint Stone. Then, he successfully died at your hands. However, what puzzled you was this. Since this Epic Saint Stone was created by other Shore realm experts, and Taichu Taoist had left 3 of them, could it be that Taichu Taoist was another Shore realm expert? If that were truly the case, why didn't he leave the correct usage method? This was completely contradictory. However, this item's ability to increase cultivation was a great piece of good news for you. In addition to the above information, Blood Wushang also had information about the crazy old man who destroyed the Guanyu realm. That person also had an aura from the Transcendent Saint realm, but he was crazy and could not be communicated with. Blood Wushang only glanced at him from a distance and did not approach. After searching Blood Wushang's divine soul, you plan to search Tianji Old Ancestor's divine soul next. The value of Tianji Pavilion had always been very high. Now, it should finally reach its peak, right? Tianji Old Ancestor should be the mastermind behind everything. You didn't believe his value could still increase. 691. The Secret of Heaven, the Great Calamity of Cause and Effect. The wordless stone tablet, the undercurrent is surging. Afterward, you began to perform soul scouring on Tianji Old Ancestor. As a pseudo-sacrifice Dao realm, Tianji Old Ancestor had lived for more than 10 times longer than Blood Wushang. His memories were naturally even more vast. And what you focused on were memories related to yourself. Tian Yunzi was indeed sent by Tianji Old Ancestor. Several 100 billion years ago, Tianji Old Ancestor had a sudden whim and performed a divination, discovering that a prodigy with a transcendent mark would appear in the heavenly realms in the future, posing a great threat to him. Thus, he dispatched Tian Yunzi to nip this budding threat in the bud. You already knew what happened next. Tian Yunzi was ambushed by the corpse ancestor and eventually died by your hand. What you cared about was why he changed his mind midway. He originally wanted Tian Yunzi to eliminate you, but why did he later instruct Tian Yunzi to bring you back to the Celestial Mystery Gate? This segment of memory seemed to relate to his secret and was hidden extremely deeply by Tianji Old Ancestor. You also expended some effort to learn the truth. It turned out that Tianji Old Ancestor, this old fellow, was about to undergo the karma great tribulation among the 3 disasters, 3 calamities, and 3 difficulties. Tianji Old Ancestor was most skilled at divination and strategizing, and the karma power he accumulated was extremely terrifying. He calculated that he had a 70% chance of perishing in the karma great tribulation. And since you were favored by the transcendent mark and possessed extraordinary talent, if he were to perform possession on you, his hope of cultivating back to the sacrifice Dao realm in the future would greatly increase. Of course, Tianji Old Ancestor was cunning. He had already prepared more than a dozen prodigies within the sect who had once obtained the transcendent mark, for his possession. However, the more such prodigies, the better, so he could choose the most formidable one. Then, he died by your hand. This might be a case of cause and effect, with its own destiny. He wanted to rely on you to overcome the karma great tribulation, but he didn't expect that you were his karma tribulation. This might also be due to him being blinded by greed under the interference of tribulation chi. You spent a few more days examining Tianji Old Ancestor's divine soul. You found that his divine soul, unlike cursed Dao Immortal Emperors, had not been tampered with by anyone, and you finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the root cause of everything in Tianji Pavilion was this Tianji Old Ancestor. After the soul scouring, you spent another half a month slowly grinding him away until he was completely annihilated, only then truly feeling at ease. Afterward, you began to perform soul scouring on Taichu Divine Emperor. What interested you most about Taichu Divine Emperor was the flawless sacrificial Dao method. By now, you had already obtained several different flawless sacrificial Dao methods from Blood Wushang. Your interest in Taichu Divine Emperor naturally diminished quite a bit. However, this did not mean that Taichu Divine Emperor was without value. For example, you were quite curious about everything related to Taoist Taichu. Was Taoist Taichu a flawless sacrificial Dao realm or another shore realm expert? Where did he go after he disappeared? Was it the transcendent saint realm mentioned in Blood Wushang's memories? And why did he create the Taichu realm? There were no answers to any of these questions in the outside world. As a descendant of Taoist Taichu, Taichu Divine Emperor must have had some understanding of this. However, when you performed soul scouring on Taichu Divine Emperor, you discovered that the so-called Yin family was not a descendant of Taoist Taichu at all. No one knew the true name of Taoist Taichu. Taoist Taichu also did not leave any descendants in the Taichu realm. But the Taichu Divine Dynasty was indeed founded by Taoist Taichu. And the Yin family ancestor was merely a servant of Taoist Taichu. When Taoist Taichu suddenly disappeared, the Yin family ancestor claimed to be a descendant of Taoist Taichu, using the legitimate title of inheritance to take over the Taichu Divine Dynasty. What happened later was well known. As various forces in the Taichu realm continuously rose, the Yin family was unable to control the entire Taichu realm and could only retreat to the central region. From an outsider's perspective, it meant they had squandered all their ancestral legacy. This also brought much criticism to the Yin family. But despite the criticism, the Yin family themselves knew that they were merely usurpers, not the true inheritors of the divine dynasty. It was enough for their own family to enjoy prosperity, no matter the consequences. And you did indeed find a flawless sacrificial Dao method named the Taichu Sacrificial Dao chapter in Taichu Divine Emperor's memories. This was originally passed down by Taoist Taichu to the Yin family ancestor. It appeared to be much more profound than the few chapters left by Blood Wushang. However, after the Yin family ancestor failed to break through using this sacrificial Tao method, he directly perished, not even having a chance at reincarnation. This scared the other descendants so much that they dared not use this sacrificial Tao method for breakthrough again. From your perspective, the Yin family ancestor at that time had not even reached the 10,000 Tao realm, yet he presumptuously attempted to become a flawless sacrificial Tao, and as a result, he was naturally killed by the backlash. If the Yin family ancestor had attempted breakthrough with an incomplete sacrificial Tao method, he might not have failed to become a pseudo-sacrifice Tao realm. Besides the above, you also made a significant discovery in Taichu Divine Emperor's memories. That was, what Taoist Taichu left behind was not just 3 epic saint stones and 1 flawless sacrificial Tao method. He also left behind a wordless stone tablet. The Yin family descendants did not notice anything unusual about that stone tablet, so they kept it in a secret realm within the deep space of the imperial palace. This secret realm was built by Taichu Divine Emperor for his sole use, considered his personal treasury. You used the secret technique from Taichu Divine Emperor's memories to open that secret realm, and sure enough, you discovered the wordless stone tablet. The wordless stone tablet was 3 meters tall, entirely white, and emitted a faint glow. You activated infinite enlightenment, and only then did you vaguely sense content on it, but you still couldn't see it clearly. It seemed that this wordless heavenly tablet indeed contained something left by Taoist Taichu. What exactly it was, you did not yet know. It was estimated that you would only be able to comprehend it once your comprehension ability reached a higher level. You put away the wordless stone tablet. Then, you turned your gaze to 9 Nether Demon God. Because of the corpse ancestor's death, this fellow had been relentlessly pestering you, even wanting to put you to death. After performing soul scouring on him, you immediately executed him on the spot. After killing 9 Nether Demon God, you then dealt with Taichu Divine Emperor, the last survivor. At the same time, Mystic Ice Taoist, Sword Ancestor Zhan Tian, Yin Qianji, and Bodhi Zen Master, who had escaped with their lives, had mostly recovered their cultivation. That Lu Chengsheng has such strength even before breaking through to the sacrificial Tao. If he successfully breaks through, we can only hide forever. Yin Qianji said with a gloomy voice. A fierce glint flashed in Mystic Ice Taoist's eyes. Taichu realm has been the foundation of my Ice Soul Palace for so many years, I cannot easily give it to that Lu Chengsheng. Sword Ancestor Zhan Tian sighed. I also didn't expect him to be so ambitious, now we can only try to remedy the situation. 692. The storm is coming, fellow disciples and close relatives. 20,000 epics, praise the Tao of sacrifice. Bodhi Zen Master clasped his hands together. I believe all benefactors have their own connections. As long as we widely invite our friends, we can definitely kill Layman Lu and regain the Taichu realm. Of course, there was one more thing he didn't say. It's easy to invite a god, but hard to send him away. Doing this would surely attract other sacrificial Tao forces to interfere in the Taichu realm. But solving you is the most urgent matter, those things can only be dealt with later. After the 4 discussed and agreed, they began to act separately. A storm targeting you is about to strike. And after you annihilated the several prisoners, you began to refine the power of the epic saint stone according to the method in Blood Wusheng's memory. Your cultivation grew at an astonishing speed. In just 1 month, your cultivation increased by 1,000 epic, which was truly terrifying. As your cultivation grew, your refining speed became faster and faster. You only took 3 more months to completely refine the epic saint stone. Your cultivation increased by another 4,000 epic, reaching 15,000. In other words, you only took 4 months for your cultivation to increase by half. If this were to spread, it's likely no one would dare to believe it. After these few months, your 9 great avatars had basically subdued the 5 major territories of the Taichu realm. A group of top forces originally wanted to resist a bit. Especially Ice Soul Palace, Heaven Severing Sword Sect, and Bodhi Zen Temple. After all, they all still had sacrificial Tao old ancestors wandering outside, who might suddenly launch a counterattack at any time. If they surrendered too quickly, how could they explain it to the sacrificial Tao old ancestors? Furthermore, you would certainly be wary of the sacrificial Tao old ancestors and wouldn't kill them. However, when Celestial Mystery Gate in the Southern Territory was directly annihilated, they realized you were serious. One by one, they quickly surrendered. But Heaven Severing Sword Sect, as the sect you came from, still wanted to hold out a bit. After all, you had lived here for so many years, and there was still some camaraderie among fellow disciples. Among them were many of your friends. Unexpectedly, your Tao body showed no mercy at all. Anyone who didn't submit was killed. This matter even alarmed your main body. After your main body came out of seclusion, he scolded the Tao body. He said these people were your fellow disciples and close relatives, how could he be so cruel? Later, you told your fellow disciples of heaven-severing sword sect that this was all done by the Tao body and had nothing to do with you. You would definitely treat everyone well. However, when everyone looked at your eyes, they already showed fear. You sighed. The Tao body made you take the blame again. You also didn't know why, being so kind, none of your Tao bodies acted like proper people. Perhaps this is the drawback of the clone technique. It makes your Tao body become tyrannical, without any of your elegant and gentle demeanor. After subduing several major top forces, your Tao body established the Eternal Life Immortal Court on the foundation of the Taichu Divine Dynasty in the Central Territory, and began to spread the Immortal Tao. The mountain gates of the several major top forces served as local branches. For a time, the Immortal Tao spread rapidly in the Taichu realm. You could feel the Immortal Qi rapidly increasing, bringing a significant improvement to your cultivation. Of course, it was still far from catching up with the speed at which you consumed resources. It would probably require everyone in the Taichu realm to switch to cultivating the Immortal Tao to achieve that. Besides the several major top forces, there were countless small and medium forces in the Taichu realm. To completely subdue them and make everyone switch to cultivating the Immortal Tao would require immense effort. Without 1,000 or 800 years, it would probably be very difficult to achieve. After the Eternal Life Immortal Court unified the Taichu realm, all the resources of the entire realm could be used by you. 693. The sacrificial rank, all killed. The free and unrestrained, the anti-Lu alliance. Lu, the sea of suffering is boundless, turn back and you will reach the shore. Bodhi Zen master clasped his hands together and recited a Buddhist chant. Zhantian Laozu also said, Eternal life, if you surrender now, I can still persuade everyone to spare your life. Yin Qianji, uncharacteristically, asked about Taichu Divine Emperor, where is that old fellow? What did you do to him? You indifferently said, he is already dead. Yin Qianji's body trembled, finding it hard to believe, and he muttered, it's good that he's dead, it's good that he's dead. You continued, not only Taichu Divine Emperor, but Tianji Old Ancestor, 9 Nether Demon God, and Blood Wushang are all dead. Devil Emperor Ancestral Master chuckled sinisterly, he, it seems little friend has a deep demonic nature. If we had met earlier, perhaps we could have become comrades. Alright, no more nonsense with him, let's finish this quickly. Mystic Ice Taoist snorted coldly and was the first to charge forward with her sword. Previously in Taichu Imperial Capital, her strength was greatly diminished, allowing you to benefit from the situation. Now, she would let you see her true strength. Very good, you are the first. You smiled slightly, pointed a finger, and the endless void realm exploded. The Mystic Ice Sword in Mystic Ice Taoist's hand shattered into pieces under your finger, flying in all directions. And she was also pierced by your finger, blood dyeing the void realm red, as she screamed shrilly. Everyone was greatly shocked at the sight. How is this possible? Last time in the Imperial Capital, your strength was only slightly stronger than an ordinary sacrificial Tao. You only relied on your various Tao body to drive away the greatly weakened crowd. Why has your strength increased so much now? Could it be that at this realm, one's cultivation can still advance by leaps and bounds? However, you didn't care what they thought. You directly charged into the midst of the sacrificial Tao, beginning a massacre. Your 200,000 epic cultivation almost completely suppressed these pseudo-sacrificial Tao. Even if they used their sacrificial Tao power, they could not turn the tide. Sacrificial Tao power is also divided into grades 1 to 9. Those who broke through with incomplete methods are basically the lowest quality 8th or 9th grade. How could they possibly shake your 200,000 epic cultivation? One after another, the sacrificial Tao who came to besiege you had their flesh and blood splattered, emitting screams and wails. Too terrifying. The other people in Taichu realm watched the bloody scene before them, trembling with pale faces, devoid of any color. Those were sacrificial Tao Old Ancestor who looked down upon all living beings, yet in front of Eternal Life Devil Emperor, no, in front of Eternal Life Immortal Emperor, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They felt despair. They had thought these sacrificial Tao old ancestor could free them from the sea of suffering, but they never expected that these sacrificial Tao old ancestor couldn't even save themselves. Were they destined to be trapped in the clutches of eternal life Immortal Emperor for their entire lives? When you consecutively slew 4 or 5 pseudo-sacrificial Tao, the others finally broke down and began to flee for their lives. At this moment, your 9 Daoshan finally arrived. They extinguished their last hope. Don't kill me, this old man is willing to submit to you. 9 Clear Tao Ancestor was the first to beg for mercy. Having lived for countless epochs, he did not want to die in such a way. As soon as 9 Clear Tao Ancestor spoke, the others also began to beg for mercy. Eternal life, I once taught you sword techniques. Among them, Sword Ancestor Zantian began to curry favor. Everything Sword Ancestor Zantian did was only for himself. Previously in the imperial capital, when he intended to push you out, you had already severed all ties with him. You directly struck out with a palm. Boom! Zantian Laozu flew backward, blood gushing from his nose and mouth, his linen robe stained crimson, looking utterly miserable. You indifferently swept your gaze over the others present. Submit. Sorry, I only want your lives. Pseudo-sacrificial Tao realm are extremely difficult to control, and keeping them by your side would be a disaster, requiring you to expend effort to guard against them. Since they actively came to your doorstep, it was natural to wipe them all out. The next moment, your 9 Daoshan simultaneously took action. The terrifying fluctuations seemed to tear apart even Taichu realm. When the light dissipated and everything returned to calm, there was no longer a single sacrificial Tao realm present. Dead, all dead, many people muttered to themselves, their faces filled with disbelief. Those were a full 15 sacrificial Tao realm. Normally, even one dying is difficult, yet now all of them have fallen. This is an unprecedented event. There were also many people who stood dazed, seeing their old ancestor die, and tears uncontrollably fell. Even their old ancestor died, they were destined to never escape the clutches of eternal life immortal court for their entire lives. The fall of 15 sacrificial Tao had a considerable impact. In the known realm, there were 70 to 80 incomplete sacrificial Tao in total. Even though most of them did not come, they were paying attention to this battle. The result was unexpected. You emerged victorious. Those 15 people couldn't even escape. The information revealed behind this was astonishing. This meant that you had already created a huge gap between yourself and the other sacrificial Tao. Throughout history, apart from Taichu Taoist who created Taichu realm, no one else had ever seen such a powerful individual. What worried many people even more was this. You had now slain 15 sacrificial Tao. Next, would you conquer other realm? How would they resist then? Among them, some quickly acted as intermediaries, intending to establish an anti-Lu alliance to resist you. This person was an extremely ancient sacrificial Tao powerhouse, named Free and Unfettered Venerable. Almost everyone from his epoch had died, yet he managed to live perfectly until now. He was also highly respected among the sacrificial Tao, and many were his descendants. With him leading the formation of the Anti-Lu Alliance, naturally, many people responded. The alliance quickly gained the participation of more than 20 sacrificial Tao forces. As everyone was discussing how to deal with your threat, Free and Unfettered Venerable quietly came to Taichu realm, and in front of you, he took out a list. He fawned and smiled, "My lord, these are the people who wish to plot against you." You took the list and saw that there were still so many people who didn't know their place. Since that was the case, you didn't need to be polite and directly sent your 9 Daoshan to resolve the matter. With Free and Unfettered Venerable's inside help, these people were quickly wiped out in one fell swoop. Even in death, they didn't understand why Free and Unfettered Venerable would betray them. Free and Unfettered Venerable looked at their corpses and sneered repeatedly. His discernment had never been poor. He knew that even if everyone united, they would hardly be able to do anything to you. It was better to offer them to you as a sign of allegiance. If he didn't possess such cunning and methods, how could he have survived until now? Free and Unfettered Venerable rendered a great service this time, and you were not stingy with rewards for him. 694. The comprehension increased dramatically, 30,000 epochs. The crazy old man reappeared, the treasure of the sky. You had him guard the mountain and sea world, the largest realm outside of the Taichu realm. This could serve as a demonstration, attracting more sacrificial Tao realm cultivators to join. Of course, you also had requirements for him. First, he was to gather resources, and second, he was to spread the immortal Tao. If these two requirements did not satisfy you, you would only give him an honorary position, allowing him to retire. Fortunately, free and unfettered Venerable was very diligent and dedicated. Everything was done according to the standards of the Taichu realm. He even surpassed them. You couldn't help but sigh. For the sake of survival, he was indeed a ruthless person. Afterward, you sent a Tao body to take over the forces of the pseudo-sacrificial Tao realm cultivators who had died by your hand. This time, it involved over a dozen medium and large-sized realms. And a continuous stream of resources could be sent over. You particularly focused on collecting treasures that enhance comprehension ability. Because you noticed that the efficiency of devouring resources had recently decreased. It was likely that the immortal Tao principles were about to encounter a new bottleneck. Therefore, comprehension ability became especially important. A year later, after devouring a large amount of resources that enhanced comprehension ability, your basic comprehension ability once again surged by more than 20 times. This had basically reached a certain peak. Unless you went to the Transcendent Saint realm, it would be difficult for it to continue increasing within the realms. After your comprehension ability increased, you once again tried to observe the wordless stone tablet. This was left by Taichu Taoist. It definitely wouldn't be simple. Previously, you only sensed that there was content on it, but you couldn't see it clearly. This time, you could actually see some distorted and blurry runes. According to Blood Wushang's memory, these were precisely the common characters of the Transcendent Saint realm. Through some of the content, you could vaguely discern that this was a cultivation technique. However, since most of the content was too blurry, you dared not practice it blindly. You put away the wordless stone tablet. Afterward, you continued to devour resources and improve your cultivation. 70 years later, after devouring the resources of nearly 10 more medium and large-sized realms, your cultivation once again increased by 10,000 epochs, reaching 30,000 epochs. During these 70 years, sacrificial Tao realm powerhouses from other realms came to pledge their allegiance. Currently, the Eternal Life Immortal Court has reached 26 pseudo-sacrificial Tao realm cultivators. It is the undisputed #1 force in the known realms. Furthermore, the Eternal Life Immortal Court's influence extends to over 100 medium and large-sized realms, occupying 1/3 of the known realms. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that conquering the remaining 2/3 was only a matter of time. Of course, these known realms only constitute a small portion of the endless realms. However, there are no connecting passages to other realms. Currently, there are over a dozen explored large realms, several hundred medium realms, and over 1,000 small realms. Even though the Eternal Life Immortal Court's sphere of influence only occupies 1/3, the power of sentient beings' faith it brings you is extremely terrifying. It almost allows you to increase your cultivation by 1 epoch every 7 or 8 days. Of your increase to 10,000 epochs of cultivation, a small portion was obtained by the immortal Tao principles devouring the power of sentient beings' faith. After your cultivation reached 30,000 epochs, the efficiency of devouring resources dropped significantly again. You knew it was time to strengthen the immortal Tao principles. The immortal Tao principles currently rank 3rd in the Taichu realm. Above it are the world-destroying Tao principles, ranking 2nd, and the epic Tao principles, ranking 1st. These two great Tao principles naturally come from the world-extinguishing Dominator and the epic Master. All large realms possess these two Tao principles. In contrast, the Destiny Tao principles, which once ranked 1st in the heavenly realms, can only barely make it into the top 100. And the Destiny Tao principles were not the native Tao principles of the heavenly realms, but were brought there by Tian Yunzi. The strongest native Tao principles in the heavenly realms were the Chaos Tao principle, which was even lower than the Destiny Tao principles. However, the Chaos Tao principle in the Taichu realm ranks before Destiny. The strength of a Tao principles is entirely determined by the characteristics of its residing realm. In some realms, the causality laws rank 1st, while in others, the destruction Tao principle ranks 1st. Therefore, the power of a Tao principles is difficult to reflect in its name. It is more about its complexity and profundity. As long as it is complex and profound enough, even the Tao of fire can rank 1st. Your immortal Tao principles currently rank 3rd, so you know there is still a significant gap between them and the world-destroying Tao principles and epic Tao principles. What you want is not to surpass the two Tao principles, but to raise the upper limit of the immortal Tao principles to achieve the goal of rapidly increasing your strength. You continuously deduced and perfected the immortal Tao principles. 20 years later, you integrated tens of thousands of Tao principles, significantly raising the grade of the immortal Tao principles. Although it still hadn't surpassed the world-destroying Tao principles, which ranked second, you could clearly sense that your cultivation speed had increased significantly. In these 20 years, 7 more incomplete sacrificial Tao realm cultivators came to pledge allegiance to the Eternal Life Immortal Court. You had originally planned to continue deducing. But at this moment, your Tao body sent back an important piece of intelligence. That was, the crazy old man who had previously destroyed the Guan Yu realm had reappeared. Besides destroying the Guan Yu realm, the crazy old man also had a track record of injuring several incomplete sacrificial Tao realm cultivators. And all of these people were severely injured with a single move. If he hadn't been so deranged and hadn't deliberately taken lives, those incomplete sacrificial Tao realm cultivators who were injured by him felt that they might have been killed with a single move. Killing an incomplete sacrificial Tao realm cultivator, even with your current strength, would take 4 or 5 moves. The crazy old man's ability to do this meant his strength was absolutely unfathomable. Most importantly, according to Blood Wushang's memory, this person had the aura of the transcendent saint realm on him, making it highly likely that he was from the saint realm. Your main body no longer remained in seclusion, but instead dispatched a Tao body to investigate the situation. This time, the crazy old man appeared in a medium-sized realm, the Jinmu realm. Your Tao body did not immediately approach, but observed from a distance. It seemed that someone in the Jinmu realm had provoked the crazy old man, and he was wantonly slaughtering. While slaughtering, he was also laughing maniacally. Die, all die. Ha ha ha. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the entire realm fell into destruction. The Jinmu realm is a medium-sized realm. For him to be able to destroy it so easily, his strength is definitely above yours. Moreover, the broken sword in his hand caught your Tao body's attention. It was a rusty iron sword, but the aura it exuded far surpassed that of a top-tier Chaos Supreme treasure. If you weren't mistaken, this should be a damaged Vault of Heaven treasure. A Vault of Heaven treasure is an existence above a Chaos Supreme treasure. Only materials from the Transcendent Saint realm can be used to forge it. It is almost impossible to see one in the lower realm. 695. 50,000 epics, no idle people. Battle against the crazy old man, Deluo Void Tao. So the question is, did the crazy old man's power come from the Vault of Heaven treasure or from himself? No matter where it came from, you currently have no intention of clashing with him head-on. After the crazy old man destroyed the Jinmu realm, he disappeared again. You also found it difficult to track his movements. This guy is a hidden bomb. What if one day he runs to the Taichu realm? You originally thought you were invincible in the known realms. Currently, it seems it's better to be cautious. Afterward, your main body continued to cultivate in seclusion, devouring resources. The immortal Tao principles have improved somewhat, allowing you to rapidly enhance your strength again. And your Tao body also accelerated the conquest of other realms. However, as your strength increased, your current Tao body only possessed half the strength of your main body. Even so, in the known realms, it was still hard to find an opponent. What's more, you had a total of 9 Daoshan like this. Time flew by, and 50 epoch passed in a blink of an eye. After devouring a massive amount of resources, your cultivation finally reached 40,000 epoch. At this point, even if you couldn't defeat the crazy old man, he would have a hard time threatening your life. In these 50 epoch, almost all known realms were brought under the rule of the Eternal Life Immortal Court. To consolidate rule and accelerate the spread of the immortal Tao, your main body even took a few years in the middle to perfect the Hua Sheng Ren Fa, using it to control Immortal Emperor level powerhouses. As for controlling those with incomplete sacrifice Tao realm, the difficulty was too great. It would not be possible to perfect the Hua Sheng Ren Fa to that level in a short time. And there's no need for it at the moment. There are only dozens of incomplete sacrifice Tao realm cultivators. As long as your Tao body keeps a close eye on them, that's enough. In these decades, your Tao body once again killed more than a dozen incomplete sacrifice Tao realm cultivators. Most of them were those who were accustomed to being free and unfettered and unwilling to submit. In that case, you could only send them to the Pure Land. There were also a few who had submitted before but were secretly defiant. Even if sacrifice Tao realm cultivators pledged allegiance to you, you wouldn't treat them like lords. Instead, they had performance evaluations. Those who seriously failed to meet the standards could only be used as a warning to other sacrifice Dao realm cultivators. Under your thunderous methods, many sacrifice Dao realm cultivators had clearly realized that their lives were not their own. If they were valuable to you, they could live; if they were useless to you, they could only die. It's still the same old saying, the eternal life immortal court doesn't support idlers. Every bit these insects slack off, the suffering of all beings increases by 1 bit, and the eternal life immortal emperor's karma decreases by 1 bit. Therefore, you would show them no mercy. As for resources and the power of sentient beings' thoughts, you've helped all beings so much, so it's not too much for them to give you a little compensation, right? However, as your cultivation became higher, the more resources were needed to increase your cultivation by 1 epoch. It had now soared to the point where resources worth 1 billion Dao crystal were needed to increase cultivation by 1 epoch. Compared to the initial 10 million Dao crystal, it had increased 100-fold. Most of the resources in the known realms had been devoured by you. Even if you devoured all the remaining ones, it would probably only increase your cultivation by 10,000 epoch. After that, you would have to rely on the power of sentient beings' thoughts. Just as your main body was planning to continue cultivating in seclusion, news suddenly came that the crazy old man had reappeared. And this time, the crazy old man appeared in a very unusual place, the second largest known realm, the mountain and sea world. The mountain and sea world was currently guarded by the free and unfettered Venerable, who was quite fond of his life. Upon discovery, he immediately reported it. The mountain and sea world is 7 to 8/10 the size of the Taichu realm, and it contains countless sentient beings who can provide you with a massive amount of the power of sentient beings' thoughts. You couldn't possibly sit idly by as you did last time. Your main body directly entered the mountain and sea world. At this time, the crazy old man had gone mad again, slaughtering wantonly. The free and unfettered Venerable, heavily wounded by a single blow from the crazy old man, came before you to apologize, saying he really couldn't stop him. It must be said that this free and unfettered Venerable was indeed smooth. He deliberately got seriously injured, leaving you no excuse to punish him. You waved your hand, telling him to go down and heal, and then dispatched 9 Daoshan to seal off the crazy old man, lest he cause greater destruction to the mountain and sea world. Your 9 Daoshan joined forces to form a sealing formation, and soon the crazy old man's every move was greatly restricted. However, this further stimulated his fierce power, causing his aura to rise another level. But even so, he found it difficult to escape the sealing formation of your Dao body. After 3 days and 3 nights, when your Dao body had largely depleted his strength, your main body finally made a move. With just 1 punch, you sent him flying, causing him to fall into layers of the void realm. Threatened with his life, the crazy old man's eyes finally regained a few traces of clarity. He fiercely slashed the broken sword in his hand. Boom! The void realm in front of him was completely annihilated. And he suddenly leapt several times from the wildly exploding void realm, fleeing in a panic, and soon disappeared without a trace. Even the arrogant crazy old man was defeated by you, and many incomplete sacrifice Dao realm cultivators became even more awed by you. And you, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief. The mountain and sea world was finally saved. Otherwise, your loss would have been too great. Also, this vault of heaven treasure was indeed powerful. Even after you largely depleted the crazy old man's strength, he could still escape with it. But whether he can still escape the next time you meet, that's hard to say. Time flew by, and another 40 epoch passed in a blink of an eye. Your cultivation once again increased by over 10,000 epoch, reaching a terrifying 50,000 epoch. This, even in the Transcendent Saint realm, is considered a relatively excellent existence among Immortal Emperor level cultivators. In addition to your achievements in cultivation, you also had considerable mastery in techniques. The sword that slashes heavens and extinguishes the Dao had long since reached perfection, not to mention you also created a technique called the Great Luo Void Dao by combining many sealing methods. This technique had only one purpose: to make space as solid as a rock, extremely difficult to break. This was something you specifically prepared for the crazy old man. As long as he dared to show himself, you dared to send him to the Pure Land. In these 40 epoch, the eternal life immortal court's reach extended to every corner of the known realms. The immortal Dao system became the mainstream cultivation system in all realms. Countless sentient beings embarked on the path of an immortal cultivator or switched to cultivating the immortal Dao. The name of the eternal life immortal emperor was also known to everyone. To be able to suppress all sacrifice Dao realm cultivators as an Immortal Emperor, hasn't this already proven the superiority of the Immortal Dao system? With a towering mountain like you standing before them, many people were full of anticipation for the Immortal Dao system. 696. Amazing telekinesis, innate chi. The death of a crazy old man, the treasure house of the demon. Under the efforts of the Eternal Life Immortal Court, the sentient beings, Nianli thought power related to the Immortal Dao principles that you currently obtain is already extremely terrifying. Even if your cultivation is as high as 50,000 epochs, you can increase your cultivation by 1 epoch every 3 days. And this is not the limit of the sentient beings, Nianli thought power. It is merely the fastest absorption speed of the Immortal Dao principles. Currently, the resources of the known realms have almost been completely absorbed by you. Next, the sentient beings, Nianli thought power, will be your main source of cultivation growth. During this time, the crazy old man has not appeared. It is unknown whether he is hiding to heal his injuries, or if it's not yet time for him to go crazy. This makes you feel a bit of pity. You still wanted to research the Vault of Heaven treasure. Subsequently, you took out the wordless stone tablet. As your cultivation grew, your comprehension ability also increased significantly. 2/3 of the content on the wordless stone tablet was clearly visible to you. This is a cultivation technique that describes the Tao of primordial beginning. Primordial beginning is formless and G-less, only possessing primordial chi, and its appearance predates chaos. And this cultivation technique explains how to refine this primordial chi that existed before chaos. According to Blood Wushang's memories, primordial chi is the general outline of all innate great Tao, transcending matter, and is extremely astonishing. Even in the transcendent saint realm, generally only other shore realm powerhouses master it. As for sacrificial Tao realm, unless it is a top prodigy with an astonishingly high foundation, attempting to master primordial chi would only lead to self-destruction. That Tao of primordial beginning person actually left behind such a cultivation technique. It seems your guess was not wrong, he is most likely another shore realm powerhouse. You are not even sacrificial Tao realm yet, so naturally, you wouldn't dare to cultivate rashly. However, you can frequently observe it and comprehend its profound mysteries. This will also be of great benefit to strengthening your Immortal Dao principles. 9 more years passed, and your cultivation increased by 1,000 epochs. You also gained a deeper understanding of the profound mysteries of the Tao of primordial beginning. And at this time, news finally came from a remote, small realm that the crazy old man had appeared. Your main body, along with your 9 great avatars, immediately rushed over. The crazy old man seemed to have a fit of madness, wantonly destroying things. When you arrived, this small realm was almost completely destroyed. Your eyes grew cold. There were countless sentient beings who cultivated Immortal Dao within it. They died so tragically. As the Eternal Life Immortal Emperor, you will definitely seek justice for them. Seeing you and your 9 great avatars, the crazy old man paused for a moment, quickly recognized you as the one who had severely injured him last time, and turned to flee. It seems he's only crazy, not stupid. You sneered, and together with your 9 great avatars, you jointly cast the Grand Luo Void Dao, sealing the Void Realm. The crazy old man only felt the Void Realm was as solid as iron. Even if he used his short sword, it would be difficult to break through. At this point, his idea of shattering the Void Realm and escaping was completely dashed. Seeing that there was no escape, he brandished his broken sword and roared as he charged towards you. You extended your palm and sneered, "With this palm, carrying 50,000 epochs of cultivation, can you withstand it?" With one palm strike, the crazy old man's body instantly shattered into pieces. However, he was not so easy to kill. His body quickly recovered as before, and he charged at you again. You struck again with your palm, and his body recovered again. Your expression grew solemn. This guy is indeed not simple. It's very possible he is a flawless sacrificial Tao. Because the flawed sacrificial Tao in the lower realm would definitely die beyond redemption if they took this palm strike. You just don't know why he came here in such a crazy state. However, although he was difficult to kill, his combat power was far inferior to yours. You continuously attacked, spending most of a day to completely wear him down and obliterate him. Afterward, you collected his divine soul and began to search his memories. As you searched his memories, your expression first became solemn, then your brows relaxed, and finally, a hint of joy appeared. According to the crazy old man's memories, he came from the Yuan demon sect in Sun Abundant Holy State, one of the 365 saint states in the Transcendent Saint realm. He was originally an elder of the Yuan demon sect, with the given name Duan Shang. Later, the Yuan demon sect was destroyed by the Heavenly Thunder sect in a great battle, and at the moment of life and death, he had no choice but to use a realm evasion talisman to escape to the lower realm. But due to severe injuries, and being wounded by spatial forces while traversing between the two realms, his divine soul was impacted by the devilish chi within his body, causing him to become crazy. Your brows relaxed because the crazy old man's sect was destroyed, which meant he had no significant backing, and no one would come to trouble you. And the look of joy was because the Yuan demon sect had hidden most of its treasures in a certain treasure trove before the great battle. Coincidentally, this crazy old man was one of the informed individuals. As long as you go to Sun Abundant Holy State, you will definitely be able to find this treasure trove. The Yuan demon sect was not a small sect, the strongest person in their sect was another Shore Realm powerhouse. Its hidden treasures would still be quite valuable to you. And this crazy old man was indeed a flawless sacrificial Dao before. He was even a sacrificial Dao triple-layer powerhouse who had passed the third tribulation. It's just that after he went crazy, he never healed himself. His body was in a long-term weakened state, which allowed you to take advantage. If he had been at his peak, it would probably have been you running away. After searching his memories, you spent several more attempts to obliterate the crazy old man's divine soul. With the crazy old man, this major hidden danger removed, you finally relaxed quite a bit. Subsequently, you began to tally your gains. Most of the things on the crazy old man were lost when he traversed between the two realms. The only valuable item was this broken sword. According to the crazy old man's memories, it was indeed a vault of heaven treasure. And it was a relatively valuable mid-tier vault of heaven treasure. However, due to damage sustained in the great battle, its power had been reduced by 90%. It was forged from materials from the Transcendent Saint realm. You wonder if your devouring heaven and earth art can devour it. But even if it can be devoured, it definitely won't be now. Because there are still quite a few divine restriction from the Transcendent Saint realm within it. Divine restriction are a unique and powerful restriction found only in the Transcendent Saint realm. The grade of a vault of heaven treasure, besides its materials, is determined by the number of divine restriction it possesses. A mid-tier vault of heaven treasure must have at least 24 divine restriction. Even though the broken sword is damaged, it still has more than 10 residual divine restriction. You need to comprehend them first. And just as you held this broken sword in your hand, the Hongmeng Dao Palace, which had been dormant in your body for a long time, suddenly emitted a desire to devour. What does this mean? Are you trying to snatch my food? The golden figure said that it felt that by devouring this item, it might be able to advance. The Hongmeng Dao Palace is currently a top-tier Chaos Supreme treasure. Outside the Transcendent Saint realm, it has no further room for advancement. Yet the golden figure said this, which inevitably surprised you. 697. Understand the divine prohibition, advance to the Hongmeng realm. War realm, cannon fodder in the immortal court. It is rare even in the Transcendent Saint realm for a Chaos Supreme treasure to advance by devouring a vault of heaven treasure. You did not expect the Hongmeng Dao Palace to possess such an ability. Hongmeng, only treasures used by other Shore Realm powerhouses in the Transcendent Saint realm can be called Hongmeng treasures. You initially thought the name Hongmeng Dao Palace was a coincidence and did not consider it further. Now, does it really seem like a coincidence? You have not thoroughly studied this broken sword yet, so even if the Hongmeng Dao Palace wants to devour it, now is not the time. You tell the golden figure that it will have to wait for some time. The golden figure waited for 50 years. You spent 50 years and finally comprehended one of the 14 divine restrictions. This is a divine restriction related to the power of sharpness. Even with only one, it greatly benefited you, significantly increasing your attack power. Your cultivation also increased by 7,000 epochs with the help of the Immortal Dao principles. The golden figure became a little anxious upon seeing your comprehension ability speed. If this continues, won't it have to wait a few more centuries? It said that after it devours the broken sword, it can absorb these divine restrictions, and then you can still comprehend them, perhaps even faster. Upon hearing this, you were somewhat moved. The Hongmeng Dao Palace currently only provides a few hundredfold increase to your comprehension ability. If it could advance to a vault of heaven treasure, it would elevate your comprehension ability to another level. You asked the golden figure how long it would take to devour it. The golden figure said it would only take over 20 years under a million-fold time acceleration. This speed is still quite fast. So, you threw the broken sword into the Hongmengdao Palace. The Hongmengdao Palace emitted its origin power, enveloping it and slowly devouring it. 21 years later, the Hongmengdao Palace completely devoured the broken sword. The Hongmengdao Palace entered a state of transformation. During these 20-odd years, you also integrated almost all the remaining Dao principles of the Taichu realm into the Immortal Dao principles. This further elevated the grade of the Immortal Dao principles. In some medium-sized realms, the grade of the Immortal Dao principles even surpassed the world-destroying Dao principles, which ranked second. The smaller the realm, the less power it can bear, and the weaker its Dao principles are relatively. Therefore, the world-destroying Dao principles in medium-sized realms are certainly not as strong as those in large realms. Even so, this demonstrates the extraordinary nature of the Immortal Dao principles. After all, previously, no matter the realm, as long as epic Dao principles and world-destroying Dao principles existed, they always ranked in the top two. This is the first time that Dao principles outside of these two have surpassed them in rank. Many who cultivate the Immortal Dao were incredibly excited by this. They knew that the Immortal Dao principles were created by you, the Immortal Ancestor, representing the upper limit of the Immortal Dao system. The stronger the Immortal Dao principles, the higher the upper limit of the Immortal Dao system. Now, the Immortal Dao principles have surpassed the world-destroying Dao principles in some medium-sized realms. How could they not be excited? Even some incomplete sacrificial Dao were greatly astonished. They began to spontaneously cultivate the Immortal Dao, wanting to glimpse its secrets. The elevation in the grade of the Immortal Dao principles, besides making its name more prominent, also accelerated its speed in devouring the Nianli of living beings. 3 more years passed. The Hongmengdao Palace completed its transformation, and a grand phenomenon surged throughout the entire Taichu realm. It successfully advanced to a vault of heaven treasure. 698. 60,000 epics, the right to preach. The craze for immortals, people from the holy world. Under your repeated acts of plundering, the cultivators of the eternal life immortal court were incredibly poor. The resources of this foreign realm had them drooling. The war between the two realms instantly began. Your main body did not pay attention to this, continuing to cultivate in seclusion. 2 years later, your cultivation finally reached 60,000 epics. With the advanced Hongmengdao Palace, you could unleash the power of 70,000 epics. All the pseudo-sacrificial Dao realm cultivators in the known realm combined were no match for you, you could eliminate them all with a single move. However, you were already invincible. Even the newly discovered foreign realm had no experts who could contend with you. You could only enjoy this invincible solitude. Afterward, you did not continue to deduce the Immortal Dao principles. Instead, you continued to perfect the Immortal Dao system. The Immortal Dao system had been perfected by you up to the quasi-Immortal Emperor realm, but you had yet to deduce the cultivation method for the Immortal Emperor realm. Now, with sufficient accumulation and an increasing number of people cultivating the Immortal Dao, it was time to complete it. People in ordinary realms relied on the Child of Extinction and the Epic Child to break through to Immortal Emperor. The existence of these two is related to the world-extinguishing Dominator and the Epic Master, and can be seen as rules set by these two mighty beings. Using them to break through is naturally easier. However, in large realms like the Taichu realm, there were naturally other ways to break through. For example, absorbing the power of Dao crystals, or receiving an empowerment from a sacrificial Dao realm old ancestor. The most common methods in the demonic path were blood sacrifices or devouring others' cultivation. The sacrificial formation set up by Tian Yunzi's clone back then contained some techniques from the demonic path sects of the Taichu realm. In any case, as long as one's cultivation reached 1 epic, it could be considered a breakthrough to Immortal Emperor. In large realms, it was naturally a case of 8 immortals crossing the sea, each showing their divine ability. What you needed to do now was to tailor a breakthrough path for cultivators of the Immortal Dao. This was very simple for you. After all, you had many methods to draw upon. The difficult part was how to maintain and even expand the prosperity of the Immortal Dao with this breakthrough method. You couldn't always rely on your Dao body to forcefully spread it. Because you would eventually go to the Transcendent Saint realm, and your Dao body might not remain in the lower realm. If you and your Tao body left, and the immortal Tao was quickly overthrown or even became a heterodox path, wouldn't all your efforts over the years be wasted? To make the immortal Tao flourish, you had to make them willingly cultivate it. At this point, you remembered the reincarnation heavenly palace. To make immortal emperors spontaneously spread the immortal Tao, their interests must be bound to the immortal Tao principles. Just like the model of the reincarnation heavenly palace back then, whether it was the faith-based or karma-based flow, both were closely related to the vital interests of the reincarnators. You could use the immortal Tao principles as a foundation and distribute a portion of the sentient beings, Nianli, to immortal emperors to enhance their strength. The wider the immortal Tao spread, the faster these immortal emperors' strength would increase. Once they tasted the sweetness, they would naturally spread the immortal Tao on their own. Of course, this also had a drawback. That is, when there is territorial expansion, the immortal Tao will spread rapidly until it covers every corner. But when there is no territory, it will fall into extreme internal competition, with various immortal emperors fiercely vying for territory and cultivators. You believe that competition leads to progress, it's two sides of the same coin. Let them compete, it's better for them to work hard than for you to work hard. Thus, you quickly perfected the cultivation method for the Immortal Emperor realm based on this idea. 6 years later, you completely perfected this set of cultivation methods and spread them. A large number of quasi-immortal emperors who had switched to cultivating the immortal Tao finally welcomed their dream cultivation method. And a great many great Tao realm powerhouses waiting for progress also wept tears of joy. Now, they could finally follow in the footsteps of the eternal life Immortal Emperor. In just 1 year, the total number of immortal emperors in various realms reached 100,000. With the eternal life Immortal Emperor dominating all under heaven with no rivals, anyone with a discerning eye could see that only by cultivating the immortal Tao was there a bright future. Otherwise, there was only the option of becoming cannon fodder on the foreign realm battlefield. These people who switched or breakthrough to Immortal Emperor soon discovered that their cultivation was closely related to the immortal Tao principles. They could enhance their cultivation by comprehending the immortal Tao principles. And the depth of their comprehension was actually the level of authority you granted them. The deeper their comprehension, the more sentient beings, Nianli the immortal Tao principles would share with them. Even if they did nothing, their cultivation would slowly increase. As for the Nianli pool, you occupied 70%, and they could only receive 30%. Mainly because there was too much sentient beings, Nianli, and you couldn't refine it all at the moment. Otherwise, you would have taken 90%. This first batch of immortal emperors naturally received the greatest benefits. They only took 3 years to increase their cultivation by 1 epoch. The performance of this group of immortal emperors naturally drove more onlookers wild with excitement. Gaining 1 epoch of cultivation in 3 years without doing anything. No wonder the immortal ancestor was so formidable, is this the terror of the immortal Tao? Many sacrificial Tao realm cultivators, including the free and unfettered Venerable, came to ask you when you would announce the immortal cultivator method for the sacrificial Tao realm. You were quite speechless about this. You, the immortal ancestor, were only at the Immortal Emperor realm. How could there be an immortal Tao cultivation method for the sacrificial Tao realm? As more and more immortal emperors emerged, everyone found that their strength increased slower and slower, unlike the initial rapid growth. But someone soon discovered that spreading the immortal Tao in those wild lands where it had not been cultivated would make the cultivation speed increase again. This was related to your second permission setting. As long as the immortal Tao was spread, immortal cultivators could permanently enjoy 10% of the sentient beings, Nianli, from those affected by it. The remaining 90% would return to the Nianli pool and then be distributed according to the 7:3 ratio. This was a permanent 10%. As long as the person who received the Tao did not die, it would only increase and not decrease. When this news spread, it naturally set off a wave of Tao spreading in the known realm. Remote areas that the Eternal Life Immortal Court had not paid attention to before were now occupied by large numbers of immortal cultivators. Many people also set their sights on the foreign realm. There were still many stubborn individuals resisting there who had not been enlightened by the immortal Tao. And the territory was vast, enough to constitute a great opportunity. However, just as the immortal Tao was spreading like wildfire, in a certain place in the southern region of the Taichu realm, a spatial Lai Feng suddenly appeared. A man dressed as a scholar and a charming Huang Shan Nu calmly passed through the Lai Feng, descending into the Taichu realm. A qi that was incompatible with the Taichu realm emanated from both of them. This chi was ethereal, void-gazer, and lofty. If you were here, you would definitely recognize that this was the unique chi of the transcendent saint realm. And it was many times more concentrated than the chi on the crazy old man back then. 699. Enemies come from the sky, whoever wins will be helped. Xiaoyao fights back again, with amazing strength. Is this the Taichu realm created by the Taichu Taoist? It's so barren. It seems that the Taichu Taoist isn't all that great. Huang Shannu observed the nearby world, her tone filled with disdain. The literary gentleman, however, closed his landscape fan and shook his head, saying, although this area is barren, the Taichu Taoist is one of the strongest among those in the other shore realm. He should not be lightly insulted. Huang Shannu dropped her disdainful expression and then became curious. Senior brother, do you think the Taichu divine tablet is really in this Taichu realm? The literary gentleman said, since it was said by the dean, it must be true. Let's investigate first. Then, the two left the area. Relying on their profound cultivation, the two did not conceal their actions and quickly took control of the Eternal Life Immortal Court's branch in the southern region. Upon learning that the Taichu realm was ruled by a great Dao realm cultivator, Huang Shannu's disdainful expression resurfaced. When your battle achievements were revealed, her expression then turned to astonishment. To suppress dozens of pseudo-sacrificial Dao cultivators alone, this person must have tens of thousands of epoch of cultivation. This is considered a genius even in the transcendent saint realm. And in this lower realm, it is even more incredible. The literary gentleman also perceived some immortal Dao principles, finding them exceptionally profound, even difficult for him to grasp in a short time, which made him marvel. This Lu Changsheng, who knows what kind of freak he is? Truly interesting. If the Taichu divine tablet is truly in the Taichu realm, then without a doubt, it must have been obtained by this Lu Changsheng. Senior brother, should we just attack them directly? Huang Shannu inquired. The literary gentleman gently fanned himself and smiled. It's not easy to come down to the lower realm, so how can we use such a boring method? We must make him estranged from his followers, drive him to despair, and make him willingly hand over the Taichu divine tablet. If he doesn't know what's good for him, then we'll just have to let him experience the thunderous methods of us, the prodigy of the upper realm. Thus, the two began to travel everywhere, subduing the sacrificial Dao powerhouses of the Eternal Life Immortal Court. Rumors that the two came from the Transcendent Saint realm also began to circulate in the Taichu realm and other realms. The Transcendent Saint realm is quite unfamiliar to most people. Only some ancient sacrificial Dao cultivators learned of its origin through some secret channels. That is a supreme world created by the Transcendent, towering above all other realms. Are the legends all true? Is there really such a world? Many pseudo-sacrificial Dao cultivators felt a storm raging in their hearts. However, due to the profound prestige of the Eternal Life Immortal Emperor, no one acted rashly for a time. They waited for the Eternal Life Immortal Emperor to decide the outcome with those two before taking sides. In short, whoever wins, they will help. This news, of course, could not be hidden from you, the Immortal Emperor of the Immortal Court. You were quite surprised, not expecting people from the Transcendent Saint realm to descend to the lower realm. The two acted strangely, constantly subduing forces, unaware of their intentions. You did not know the depth of their cultivation, so you did not act rashly. To be safe, your true body even hid in an alternate realm, leaving only a Dao body to maintain appearances. If you really couldn't win, you would just have to run away. As for their efforts to subdue forces, let them do it. What you needed to do now was to stall. The longer you stalled, the stronger you became, and the greater your chances of winning. If you could ultimately win against the forces they subdued, they would naturally not escape reckoning. They would even actively help you identify the cancerous elements within your own ranks. If you couldn't win, then there would be no need for further words. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. A full 10 years passed. Countless forces were waiting for the Eternal Life Immortal Court's reaction. However, the usually dominant Eternal Life Immortal Court headquarters turned a deaf ear to this, showing no reaction, allowing the two's forces to rapidly expand. This couldn't help but make people wonder, was the invincible Eternal Life Immortal Emperor finally afraid? As the two's momentum grew, many forces dissatisfied with the Eternal Life Immortal Court defected. Not only did more than half of the pseudo-sacrificial Dao cultivators originally belonging to the Eternal Life Immortal Court defect to the two. Even many main gods from other realms joined the two's camp. For a time, the rule of the Eternal Life Immortal Court seemed to be in peril. Not long after, another bombshell news arrived. The free and unfettered Venerable of the mountain and sea world defected with his entire realm. The free and unfettered Venerable was the sacrificial Tao cultivator you valued most. Even he defected, which was an unparalleled blow to the eternal life immortal court. In the mountain and sea world, the free and unfettered Venerable wept tears in front of the two, saying that the eternal life Immortal Emperor had always bullied them by relying on his strength, and now they had finally found a wise ruler. The free and unfettered Venerable's ability to survive until now relied on his constant ability to switch sides. And his choices of allegiance had never been wrong. Now, these two, claiming to be from the transcendent saint realm, just standing in front of him, made him feel pressure far greater than what you exerted. He became even more convinced that his choice was correct. Wasn't your continuous reluctance to act the best evidence? Now, including the main gods from other realms, a total of over 30 sacrificial Tao cultivators had defected to the two. Within the eternal life immortal court, 1/5 of the forces had also defected. The two felt the time was ripe and began to demand that you hand over the Taichu divine tablet. At this moment, you suddenly realized that the two were most likely after the unadorned stone tablet. It recorded the cultivation method of primordial qi. It was extremely valuable even in the transcendent saint realm. It was completely worth the transcendent saint realm forces taking action. In just 10 years, your cultivation had only increased by 1,500 epoch. You still needed more time. So, you sent your Tao body to feign ignorance, saying that you did not know of any Taichu divine tablet. However, the woman among the two said that she had already sensed the aura of the Taichu divine tablet on you and that you should not quibble. Tao body. Your Tao body said that since they had discovered it, you would no longer pretend. The item was indeed in your hands, but to take it, they must exchange it for other treasures. The two did not expect you to remain stubborn and directly attacked you, and your Tao body was quickly shattered. Since it had come to blows, you no longer held back. Your other 8 Tao bodies attacked together, besieging the two. Each of your Tao bodies had 50,000 epoch of cultivation. The combined efforts of the 8 were enough to contend with your true body if it did not use the Hongmeng Tao Palace. Even so, they were still defeated and completely destroyed by the two. Your true body's expression became solemn. As expected of complete sacrificial Tao cultivators from the transcendent saint realm, their strength far exceeded anyone you had encountered before. 700. Xiao Yao came up with a plan and got another holy stone. 70,000 epochs, 1 defeated 2. Your current cultivation is a little over 60,000 epoch, and with the amplification from the Hongmeng Tao Palace, it can reach 70,000 epoch. Even so, you can only contend with one of them. To defeat both, you need at least 80,000 epoch of combat power. Furthermore, you still don't know what trump cards they possess. Indeed, it's quite tricky. However, tricky is better than not knowing the full details. After killing all your Tao bodies, the two discovered that your main body was not among them. The free and unfettered Venerable said, "The two sirs do not know, this Lu Chengsheng is extremely cunning. Without absolute certainty, his main body will not easily make a move, but this junior knows the location of his closed-door cultivation." Under the guidance of the free and unfettered Venerable, acting as a guide, the two quickly entered the Eternal Life Immortal Court headquarters and found your closed-door cultivation location. However, that place was already empty. Both their expressions were displeased. The free and unfettered Venerable was even more anxious than the two of them. This was a prime opportunity for him to make a contribution to his new master, and he could not afford to fail. The free and unfettered Venerable said that Lu Chengsheng had painstakingly established the Eternal Life Immortal Court, and by using it as a threat, he would surely be forced to appear. The two then took over the Eternal Life Immortal Court headquarters and issued a public announcement: if you did not appear within 3 days, they would unleash a massacre at the headquarters. On the 3rd day, you indeed appeared. This time, it was still a Tao body that went. You said that you would only trade the Taichu divine tablet and would not give it away for free, otherwise, you would rather both be destroyed. The literary gentleman asked you what you truly wanted: magic treasure, medicinal pill, cultivation technique, or some other treasure. You said you didn't need any of those, you wanted the epic saint stone. Upon hearing this, the two's expressions subtly changed. Impossible. The Huang Shan Nu immediately refused. 1 epic saint stone could increase one's cultivation by 5,000 epoch, and it was extremely precious even in the transcendent saint realm. Most importantly, even if they had it, they would never give it to an enemy. The negotiations temporarily reached a stalemate. 10 days later, the literary gentleman said to you that he indeed had an epic saint stone in his possession, but he could only give you one. If you did not agree, he would have to search for your whereabouts inch by inch. This time, you agreed. However, you also had a condition: he had to deliver the goods first. You said that their strength was greater than yours, and if the transaction happened simultaneously, what if you were robbed? And all the people in the Eternal Life Immortal Court headquarters were your close relatives, you would absolutely not abandon them. Therefore, they had to produce the epic saint stone first. The literary gentleman pondered for a moment and quickly agreed, handing an epic saint stone to your Tao body. However, to their surprise, the agreement was to return within 1 day, but your Tao body left and never returned. A whole month passed, and there was still no sign of him. How could the two not know that you had tricked them? The two massacred extensively in the Eternal Life Immortal Court headquarters, but you still remained unseen. After so many simulations, you had already gained an important experience. That is, if you lose the land, you lose both the people and the land. As long as you are alive, you still have a chance to revive those who died. If you die, they won't even have a chance to be revived. Therefore, you would not be provoked by their actions at all. Moreover, those who could be promoted to the Eternal Life Immortal Court headquarters were all loyal individuals. Although they screamed miserably before their deaths, you believed that they were absolutely willing to sacrifice themselves for you. Since that was the case, you would just inconvenience them a little. After extensively venting in the Immortal Court headquarters, the two began to search for your whereabouts realm by realm. A month later, when you had refined the power of the epic saint stone, the two were still searching for your whereabouts. Anyway, you were very good at mobile warfare, so if they searched, you would just keep changing locations. After 20 years of this, your cultivation finally reached 70,000 epic. Your strength had greatly increased. You could completely fight 1 against 2. But for a foolproof plan, you still did not actively show yourself. What surprised you was that as your strength increased, you could finally see all the content on the wordless stone tablet. You obtained the complete cultivation method for primordial chi. Even so, you would not easily hand over the stone tablet. Because the Transcendent Saint's script on this wordless stone tablet could greatly enhance your comprehension of primordial chi. Unless absolutely necessary, you would not give up such a cultivation-sharp weapon. 10 years later, you integrated a small amount of primordial chi profound truth into the Immortal Tao principles. Your Immortal Tao principles grade suddenly increased significantly. It actually surpassed the world-destroying Tao principles of the Taichu realm, reaching 2nd place on the myriad Tao list. The speed at which the Immortal Tao principles refined the thoughts of all living beings also increased several times. Previously, you only increased your cultivation by 1 epic every 3 days. Now, it only took 1 day to increase your cultivation by 1 epic. The literary gentleman and the Huangshan Nu grew increasingly anxious when they saw this change. You were secretly and continuously improving your strength, while they couldn't even get a glimpse of you. Anyone would become anxious in such a situation. Senior brother, we can't go on like this. Having searched for decades without finding you, the Huangshan Nu could not wait any longer and wanted to use a forbidden method. After some thought, the literary gentleman agreed. Although using a forbidden method would weaken them for a period of time, it was better than searching aimlessly like this. The Huangshan Nu took out a long incense stick made from the corpse oil of a revered monk from the Transcendent Saint realm. She and the literary gentleman used their blood as flames to jointly perform a tracking secret technique. As blood continuously poured onto the long incense stick, wisps of mist continuously formed and drifted towards a certain direction. Although it was said to be drifting, its actual speed was extremely fast, covering hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. You were hiding in a certain medium-sized realm, cultivating in seclusion, when suddenly a strange fragrance wafted to your nose. You had just opened your eyes. The next moment, space exploded, and 2 figures descended before you. It was precisely the literary gentleman and the Huangshan Nu. Their faces were a little pale, but they couldn't hide their joy. Especially the Huangshan Nu, who said fiercely, "Now let's see where you can run." "Run? Why should I run?" You stood up and chuckled. "It's you who should be running." A vast and mighty power surged from your body, transforming into a massive fist print that shattered layers of the void realm, carrying your unparalleled will, and fiercely slammed into the 2 of them. Boom! The entire medium-sized realm turned into a void realm chaos. Both of them screamed miserably, their bodies instantly exploding. Although they quickly recovered, they were once again significantly weakened. The next instant, a 5 fingers mountain descended, imprisoning the two within it, making them unable to break free.